Travis, what the hell is this? Didn't you already do a video on Metroid Prime? Why are you doing 1 when 2 would have been so much better for the spooky season? Yeah. It's Halloween? Well, that would explain why my GameCube's haunted. Oh my god, okay, turn it off right now! Jerry? The 1990s marked a major shift in the gaming industry, with beloved video game franchises trying to break into the third dimension. Zelda with the Ocarina of Time, Sonic Adventure, Mario 64, Kirby 64, Metal Gear Solid, even Contra and Castlevania tried their hands at a 3D transition. But Metroid was mysteriously absent during this trend. This could be for better or for worse depending on who you ask, but the truth is that Nintendo simply couldn't come up with any concrete ideas for a 3D Metroid game, and it would remain that way until the turn of the century. It wasn't until the young, hip and fresh Retro Studios pitched a whopping 5 titles to Nintendo who passed on every single one of them. Well, passed on all but one. Metaforce, a third-person shooter that Shigeru Miyamoto took interest in, recommending the team shift the project into a first-person shooter so that they didn't run into the same issues that Rareware had with Jet Force Gemini. And after spending some time with the studio, they later suggested that the game could be better fit as a Metroid game, officially granting the team the Metroid license weeks before the announcement of a 3D Metroid game was teased at Nintendo's Space World 2000 demo. At the time, it was just Metroid 2003, the projected date of the game, or just simply Metroid. But nevertheless, fans were excited. The game officially announced at E3 2001 as Metroid Prime, to very short-lived excitement. See, Nintendo, possibly on purpose, left out that Metroid Prime would be a first-person shooter, a genre that many felt was the wrong choice for the franchise. Publications speculated the game would bomb on release, and hope wasn't very high. In retrospect, these worries were hilariously misplaced, which is a bit of a surprise when you read about the game's production. 12-hour workdays, 6 to 7 days a week, nearly 80% of the game was created within the final 6 months, but nearly 2.5-year-long dev time. It's a miracle that this game came out, and to such high praise that it eventually received. Despite all of this, audio designer Clark Wen at least thought that it was the right call to make, after literally working on the game until sunrise some days. At its core, the game was still approached in good faith to the series despite its first-person perspective. Hundreds of pieces of concept art were made for the game, many pieces simply made out of fun and passion for the series. One of these concept arts made for fun, I imagine, was Mother Brain. Seriously, what the hell is going on with this concept? It's badass, but this looks like something that a straight-edge kid would think that a drug trip looks like. Game director Mike Pacini emphasized that the game should be focused on exploration and puzzle solving first, often calling this game a first-person adventure rather than a first-person shooter, and that the only time the game should become difficult is during the game's boss fights, so that lesser skilled players shouldn't be afraid to explore to build up their arsenal. Oh yeah, remember Kenji Yamamoto, who worked on Super Metroid soundtrack? Yeah, he's back for Prime 1, but he wasn't their first choice. They had a bit of difficulty settling on who they wanted to compose for the game and what they wanted it to sound like, that so much of the game was built to be played without music. This little tidbit is sometimes misconstrued to mean that they never planned to have music in the game. That's not the case, they just couldn't settle on how they wanted the game to sound for quite some time. And that sound direction eventually boiled down to simply sounding like a video game. Nintendo felt that a lot of soundtracks were beginning to sound more like a Hollywood movie. Ironically, it was the movie Apocalypse Now that helped them come up with the sound that they wanted for the game. Specifically, the sounds of helicopter blades sounded more synthesized. Today though, Metroid Prime remains one of my favorite games in the Metroid series, just barely edged out by one of my favorite games of all time, Super Metroid. It was possibly one of the earliest first-person shooters that I remember putting time into as a kid, which I think unfortunately came with the side effect of me not understanding more traditional first-person shooters as I got older, but does explain why I'm a bit more forgiving towards the game's control scheme in its original release. I was split on what version of the game to play for this review. I could pull a G-Man Libs and review this game through the Prime Hack fan mod, giving the game complete traditional mouse and keyboard support, which I also think is a great way to try the game if you haven't before. But Prime Hack has admittedly lost a lot of its appeal for me ever since Metroid Prime Remastered came out, and I'm not going to be talking about that in detail until way later into this video, so we'll just leave it at that for now. I've also played this game for well over half of my life, so that wouldn't be a great fit for the content that I like to make. Okay, so what about the Wii/Trilogy edition of the game, some of you might be asking? This one implements Metroid Prime 3's control scheme, but what a decent amount of people don't know about this port is that a lot of the lore was rewritten and retconned so that it would fit in with the stories of future games. And I don't want that to be how I cover this game for the first time. I want to tell you the story that this game originally shipped with, because I love this game a lot, and I feel like I'd be doing it a disservice by jumping in at a later point. So because of that, I've decided to play the original GameCube release for this video. A full vanilla playthrough of the game from beginning to end on the platform that it was originally originally designed for. Mostly. I am upscaling the game, but that doesn't really affect the gameplay at all. It just makes the game look more pretty than it already does. Seriously, this game has aged crazy well visually. There's still a bit of schmutz, most obviously the textures that can range from really low res and blurry to just straight up looking like Quake graphics. But for 2002, this looks fucking unreal. This was also going to be an all collectibles and all scans run, and I fell victim to missing one of the one-time scan enemies in this game. It didn't feel like doing a whole separate playthrough just to get this one scan. This is also something that is sort of fixed in the remaster, not in a way you'd expect. Alright, now where did I put the game at? Oh, here it is. Ooh, okay, that is a lot of names. I brought this thing with me to get signed by a bunch of YouTubers back at my first Too Many Games Expo. I was back in, I think, 2018. It's kind of crazy that about everyone I got to sign this thing have become people I can call my friends today, or at least acquaintances.
Excuse me?
Please, Mr. Sauce, I recorded this script 2 years ago. That's not what I meant.
You believe this shit?
Alright, this is becoming more trouble than it's worth. Wait, 1 second. Fucking going myself, my only friend. I was wondering if I could return this signature. Cash or credit is fine. I also take cum coin. Just to get this out of the way, I won't be using the fusion suit for this video, but I wanted to give it a quick mention because holy shit, it looks so good. Now that we have Metroid Dread so that we could see how the fusion suit looks in an updated setting, it is a little weird seeing the fleshy parts of the suit look so smooth and flat, but it still looks great. In the GameCube release, you can only unlock this by beating Prime 1, then using a Game Boy connector to connect it to Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance. Doing this with Fusion beaten will also unlock a fully playable copy of Metroid for the NES. You know, the adventure that takes place right before this game we're about to jump into. That's pretty cool. It was also planned to have a copy of Super Metroid because, you know, why wouldn't you want to include the best game in the franchise in this? But they pitched it to Nintendo when using a third-party emulator. That's a big no-no when it comes to Nintendo. And yes, I know, it's not in the remaster. That sucks. I hate Nintendo. It's not the end of the world. The manual gives us a rundown of all the items we'll be collecting, many of which making their first appearance in canon, at least until Metroid Zero Mission later takes that title. It also shows us advanced mechanics like lock-on targeting and strafing. These are borderline required mechanics. I'm not sure why this is under advanced. It opens with a rundown of this new faction of Chozo, one that's pruned itself from the technology and machinery of the Chozo tribes we've met before. Okay, we don't meet a Chozo until way later down the timeline, you know what I mean. It's not to say that they didn't use technology. I think that the implication is that a lot of the Chozo tech we see throughout the game was made from the planet's native resources, rather than being shipped from other Chozo colonies. I'll be going over this Chozo lore when we get to the game because honestly, there's not a lot that's in-game that isn't in this manual, so I'll just bring it up then. The Space Pirates, though, get a good amount of exposition, clarifying a bit of what happened directly after Samus destroyed Turian back in the first game. They confirm that the Metroids that we saw in that game were plundered from SR-388. Don't know how they managed to pull that off without losing their entire army, but they used that underground laboratory in the hostile planet of Zebes to learn to control the Metroids, until the Chozo-infused human warrior of planet K-2L destroyed the Space Pirate leaders and higher-ups Kraid and Ridley, and later destroyed their Mother Brain. The manual doesn't mention the Mother Brain being formerly Chozo tech, so I don't think that's been retconned into the lore just yet. Just give it, what, one more game, I think? The pirates scavenged the remains that they could of Kraid, Ridley, and Mother Brain, with the pirates setting up shop in the next most hospitable planet in the solar system, Talon 4, retrofitting any Chozo camps they could find into their research bases, while scooping up any of their tech that they could find, discovering the Prime series' primary plot MacGuffin, Phazon. Well, actually, Phazon is what attracted them to Talon 4, but we don't learn that until way later in the game. A radioactive mutagen that they later tried to use to mutate the local wildlife for militaristic uses aboard a low-orbit space station they call the Frigate Orpheon. Or is it the Orpheon Frigate, because the frigate is a type of ship, whatever. Samus eventually tracks down this space station thanks to an SOS signal they started broadcasting, and that's where our adventure begins. This is normally where I would cut to the opening of the game and begin the adventure, but okay, hold on, I need to gush for just a second. This theme song is incredible. Now, it's not just because it's an incredible take on the classic Metroid theme, but also for how it communicates its place in the Metroid timeline. Every time you hear the classic Metroid theme in a game, it's always delivered to you in a new way. From the hopeful and optimistic tone of Metroid 1, to the distraught and more somber tone of Super Metroid's, and the distorted and slightly off-key of Fusion's. And this This version is no different. It's not too somber, it's not too cheery, but it almost feels alive. Almost like Metroid Prime is more than a game, but a being, a creature. Well, okay, that part is technically true regardless, but later on, this sort of whistly synth sets in. Most of the other noises quiet down, all except for the percussion, which hits like fucking thunder. And then the minute it's gone, that organic, fleshy sound just comes back and overtakes the composition. It's almost like nature quieting down, backing down the moment that something of consistent and intelligent design shows up, but then flourishes the minute it's gone. And then you go to the main menu. Holy shit. I could definitely attach a tone to this one. This one is telling you to fucking brace yourself because you're about to enter a hell of an adventure. Once again, taken by that organic sound, albeit much more subtle this time. And then in another verse of the track that you actually don't hear until the end of the game, it slaps you with this fucking part. I have goosebumps, holy shit. And I especially want to give a shout out to a cover of the track I found from user Rosen. He gave me permission to use the music he made for this album in this video. It'll be spliced around every once in a while, and of course, links will be in the description. I'm not gonna say too much right now, just listen to his version of this track. It's beautiful. I still cannot believe how good this is. I'm gonna listen to it on loop until I get tired of it, and then I won't get tired of it. Right, anyways. Hi, I'm Travis Guy. Metroid enthusiast, GameCube controller apologist, and 1/8 of the Crubcast podcast. I can't afford a good thing. Shit. And I hope you enjoy the show. Let's roll that snazzy new intro. Space, the final frontier airlines, guaranteed to leave your legs in critical condition with our legroom. Yeah, you see that space station down there? That's gonna be your legs. Oh, Jesus, are those rocks already burning up in the atmosphere? How low orbit is the space station? It's a miracle that this thing hasn't been dragged down and plummeted back into the planet's surface. Maybe all it needs is a little push from yours truly. If you played this game in the early 2000s and worried about this game being a real Metroid game, this is probably where your fears started to disappear, though you still have to learn to play the game. And if you're used to more modern shooters with twin-stick controls, that's gonna be a little bit tricky because this isn't one. Games had already been using what we know today as traditional twin-stick movement, but it was still fairly young as a concept. This is a lot closer to, say, Doom for the PlayStation 1, or really any other Doom ports from that era, but I've been playing Doom PS1 recently, so it's just fresh in my mind. These are effectively tank controls. The left stick moves you forward and back, looks left and right, and can be toggled into a strafing mode by holding L. And the right stick does nothing. Not yet anyway. Firing isn't done with the R trigger, but instead with the A button, a button you'll automatically be gravitated towards with this controller. Jumping is handled with B, and R stops Samus in her tracks to enable free aim, like you're playing one of the Mercury Steam games. Yeah, this feels weird if you're used to playing modern shooters. And maybe I'm a little bit biased because I grew up with this game, but it doesn't take a lot of time to get the hang of. The game was made with these limitations in mind and plays way smoother than you would expect, but that doesn't change that this was the biggest hurdle when it came to getting my friends and peers to actually play this game as a kid. This isn't as much of an issue anymore thanks to the remaster, but goddamn did that take a while. If you are one of those people who came to this video trying to learn what the big deal is, first off, welcome to the channel, I'm glad to have you. Please consider leaving a comment about how big my forehead is. And second, I assure you that this game is built around these limitations in a way that feels surprisingly streamlined. Again, I'm speaking from a place of bias. I've grown up with this game, so of course I know my way around this control scheme like the back of my hand, but it'll come naturally to you eventually. Whoa. Though when it comes to interacting with things, you're not exactly going to be shooting everything. Instead of interacting with buttons and switches on the wall like any other first-person adventure, Samus interacts with them from a distance, which, you know, would actually be really good for a bounty hunter who's trying to preserve the environment that they're hunting in. But I mean, it's Samus. She might not have destroyed any planets yet at this point in canon, but that doesn't mean she's gonna leave the place spotless, though I guess usually the explosions are because of someone else's fault, not exactly Samus's. Whatever. Doors still open like any other Metroid game. Shoot that blue barrier covering the door and eventually you'll see some more varieties later on in the game. I also fucking love this hexagon shape of the door. Hexagons are the natural shape of intelligent design, is what I used to think until you find out that Saturn has a natural hexagon on the planet's poles, unless that is intelligently designed. The scan visor is more than just a remote hacking device though, providing you intel on basically everything that the team had time to program flavor text for. The status of various machineries around the station, remotely carbon dating natural structures, giving you insight on puzzles you might need to solve, even information on, say, Samus's ship, and any life forms and wildlife you may encounter later on. Basically, if you see something and you want to know more about it, just check it with your scan visor. Scanning every creature, whether organic or robotic, as well as dedicated lore terminals for space pirates and Chozo lore later on, are all required for 100% scans. This is a separate criteria from collectibles, so you could still get 100% for items and not scans and vice versa. You don't need to scan literally everything for completion, but I still tried to just for the sake of collecting as much context and lore as possible. But if that's not for you, you don't have to scan everything in the game. If something is required to scan to move on, it likely has this red note over it instead of an orange one, so you know what to scan if you just want to get a move on. Shortly in, the cause of the distress signal makes itself known. Interstellar parasites have broken from containment, test subjects of the space pirate experiments that have had free reign over the station for basically the last 6 hours. That's when the last of the space pirates' escape pods were deployed at least. Now, that's fine, just leave these massive containers of Phazon here. Surely nothing can go wrong. I mean, look at that massive mutated parasite in the middle of the floor. It's already dead now, it's perfectly safe. Samus's scan visor is also capable of performing a socially distanced autopsy to establish the cause of death for many of the beings that we're gonna find here up on the Orpheon. This space pirate broke his spine. Cool. Thank God it's not me. Oh, we got a live one. Ah, good. Health is still purple. It'll stand out against the environment, I hope. Also, did you see that low opacity circle around the space pirate? If you see that, that's how you know that you can lock onto something with the L button. Toggling strafing mode while always having Samus faced in the direction of your target. No shit, that's what a lock-on system traditionally is in a video game, but it's important to point out. You're gonna be using this thing really for almost every combat encounter in the game. This is why I think that complaining about the movement in this game from a first impression isn't gonna take you very far. The charge beam has gotten quite the upgrade since near the end of the timeline, now almost acting as a tractor beam for health and missile pickups dropped from slain organisms and crates. Now, obviously, I would prefer to have these pickups gravitate towards me passively, but this is, you know, a step in the right direction at least. I'm guessing that they thought that it would be better to see what's gravitating towards you in a first-person space. It's not a big deal, honestly. We can also use the charge shot to destroy debris on the floor, which is only used, I don't know, like 5 times in the whole game. Oh my god, though, I love the way that the parts from her arm cannon flare out while charging. I cannot overstate how cool I think that this is. Do my eyes deceive me? Is that a small meter by meter opening? That's perfect for my ball! The morph ball in this game is kind of impressive. It doesn't control as tightly as it did in the 2D games. This one's a bit more physics influenced, like you'll bounce off geometry in a way that feels fairly realistic, but I love that the morph ball actually rolls while it you know, rolls. This really shouldn't be a huge deal, but in the previous games, the morph ball just did this rolling loop animation even while stationary. So the morph ball moving around in a way that feels realistic is kind of cool. Oh, right, this path that we roll down takes us to the map station.
You've got mail.
Every time I come back after not playing this game for a long time, this jingle gives me chills. It never gets old for me, I love it. The map itself, though, had a pretty tricky transition into 3D, but I think that it gets the job done for the most part. In later areas, especially more vertically focused areas, it can get a bit disorienting trying to find out where you are in relation to the rest of the map. There's definitely room for improvement, but I'll cut it some slack. A lot of map rooms and save stations come with some readable lore on the walls. This one tells us about how ground zero of a phazon crater on the planet below has become radioactively stable, 2 parasite queen specimens have become volatile, and that smaller parasites have infested the ventilation shafts, which they then tried to trap by closing the ventilation. Absolute galaxy brain play here, guys. I'll let you do the math. What do you get when you take away ventilation in a spaceship? The parasites seem to be the specimen of the week up here in Pirate Delight, reporting back specimens with a thicker hide and galvanized talons from a phazon infusement. Even the eggs were affected, which are only mentioned because the boss fight coming up was planned to use eggs in its boss fight, but it was cut, and I guess that this lore tidbit was left in. I mean, it's good world building, I'm not exactly gonna complain, but with things like this at risk of breaking containment, it makes some surface level sense to have some kind of automated infantry. Oh, never mind, their turrets are weak as hell. No wonder they're being overtaken by these things. This frigate, by the way, was part of a whole fleet of these things over Zebes during the pirates' time down there. Zebes has fallen, as the pirate log says. All ground personnel are assumed dead from the hunter clad in metal. Holy shit, that is a badass name. And we're able to retreat with a whole batch of Metroids that are now on reduced feeding schedules to pad out their rations. Yeah, last thing you want is for Metroids to go hungry, am I right? Wait, can the Metroids even survive without food? Do they just get irritated when they're not fed, or do they actually die of starvation? Never mind. Oh, that's pretty cool. It's one of those hopper things from the 2D games. And that's the only time we see this in the whole game. Your curiosity is often rewarded when it comes to scanning literally everything in the environment, at least in pirate areas. I just happened to find this terminal here that when scanned, disabled the turret system in the room. Yeah, you see that little green bastard up there? Yeah, he looks like he's pretty flaccid right now, huh? All right, let me see what it says about this guy. Oh, okay. Maximum firepower recommended. I think that was a bit overkill. Look, okay, I know that the fast missile tech is technically an exploit and it's patched out in the sequel games, but it wasn't patched out in future ports of this game, so I'm just going to enjoy this while I have it. Also, it's fun. Certainly more fun than death by removal of organs. Yes, the classic Nintendo staple. Boy, oh boy, it sure is convenient for all this pirate tech to require a metal sphere as a key to activate. Little did they know Samus was their key all along. To their death. Now, okay, I know what you're probably wanting to ask right now. Are the save stations as cool as they were in Super Metroid? Yes, at least I think so. Also, they refill your health, so that's a pretty nice bonus. Hello, Mama, I'm home. You better not be sitting in the reactor again. There she is. This must be the specimen that survived. Looking pretty good, might I add. A phazon-infused parasite queen, or at least infused by an unknown mutagen as Samus's logbook says, but we all know that it's phazon by now, come on. This scan log, by the way, is the only one in the entire game with an exclamation mark, which is probably the most optimistic Samus's suit AI has ever been since Fusion, or until Fusion. Oh, it's got mouth lasers, that's wow. A cool little detail about this fight, the head is its weak point as we learned from the scan log. If you don't scan it, the lock-on targets the abdomen by default, but after scanning it, it now locks onto the head. My only problem with this is that this mechanic is really never used again. This would be a great incentive to use the scan visor more often. This fight was also planned to have her lay eggs and drop parasites around the arena before getting dropped because that shit's too complicated for an opening boss fight. Look at how this motherfucker moved at one point. Holy shit, that's terrifying. So anyway, about that missile exploit. Oh hey, come on, don't be like that.
Evacuate immediately.
Oh, you're really hitting that Super Metroid nostalgia. Better here than never, I guess, because we don't have an escape sequence at the end of the game. Oh, spoilers, shit, sorry, my bad. Oh, Jesus, did the parasite just explode, or was it something else? Oh, yeah, give me those bug guts. All right, this escape sequence has been suspiciously easy. Who's in charge of this godforsaken station? Wait, this is where they brought Ridley's corpse? God damn it, of all of the frigates that they could have been pairing the parasite experiments on, I had to go to this one. I could have been on the Mother Braid frigate or the Kraid frigate. Frigate. Scott sure got a size upgrade when we last saw him on Zombies. I'm gonna blame that on the cybernetic augmentations this dude's been fitted with. Do we know if his brain is still in there? Like, does he remember me, or is he essentially a whole other organism at this point? Whatever. Meta Ridley is this thing's codename. The reanimated body of Ridley from Zebo stitched back together and fitted with ballistic weapons, plasma cells, and a metal exoskeleton. Yeah, enjoy running now, you pterodactyl fuck. We'll meet again in maybe 10 hours. Yeah, these pirates may be really fluent in tech, but they really aren't too bright. Why would you put Ridley, who, depending on the game, is often regarded as the leader of the space pirates, in the same frigate as the experimental nuclear mutant parasites? Not even like this Ridley is infused with Phazon. That would actually make sense. Now's a better time than ever for grapple hook. That was okay. Oh no, Samus, look out for that very slow-moving explosion. God damn it. I mean, sure, that explosion looks like fucking nothing, but it did throw her all the way down that hallway. Surely that's enough to explain her losing 400 pounds of gear. That's just what happens when your station doesn't have proper airflow. One of the only regions in the whole franchise to not give Samus any new abilities is also the one that taketh away. Grapple beam malfunction, charge beam malfunction. Yeah, okay, I get it. We're back to naked Samus again. No stronger than how she was in the beginning of the first Metroid, sans the shorter power beam. At least the basic power suit isn't puke yellow like in Super Metroid, and I've always had a soft spot for this weird backwards L on the chest. I have no idea what purpose the lack of symmetry here serves, but it looks really nice. That's more than I could say about these dinky ass shoulder pads. I really miss my air conditioning balls. Hold on, I know that music. Oh wait, right, this was one of the first games to use this exclusively as the theme for Ridley. What the hell is he flying, by the way? Is he swooping his wings just for show from his propulsion? Unfortunately, Samus loses Ridley on the way down, forcing her to make ground-based reconnaissance. I absolutely love this landing sequence. These harsh shots of Samus's gunship making its way to the planet in between tranquil shots of the surface below, almost mirroring this world and the Phazon plague that's about to hit it. The peaceful and tranquil life below, about to become the battlegrounds of a war that it didn't ask for. Welcome to Talon Overworld. Our stage has been set, our stakes have been raised, and our adventure finally begins proper. Our gunship behaves similar to how it did in Super Metroid, a save station, health restore, and ammo restore all in one. Also, whenever you use it to save, and only if you use it to save, Samus shakes her ass for some reason. Someone animated that. Arriving at Talon isn't quite as somber as arriving at Zebby's back in Super Metroid. The optimistic tone is oddly fitting for its place in canon. Beetles make our first enemies to us in this naked state, burrowing bastards with a melee attack, nigh harmless. Joining this all-star cast are the exploding mushroom blast caps, sap sacks, which are nectar-rich plants that have evolved to fucking explode to preserve itself, so that only brave or incredibly stupid wildlife attempt to eat it. Gamers somehow return from Zebes and are only vulnerable to concussive blasts, alongside their weaker Zoomer cousins. There's a really easy joke to be made here, but I think the name is enough to suffice. For the most part, it's harmless wildlife that doesn't really pose an ounce of a threat to Samus. Talon Overworld acts as our hub between regions for the time being, with all but one available path to us so far funneling us towards one of two regions. One being a literal magma cave, so I'm not even gonna bother with that until we get the Varia suit back. So that just leaves the Chozo Ruins. I can only imagine what this place was once called because I doubt that the Chozo called them the Ruins. Well, seismic activity is a pretty good lead when we're in a Chozo homeworld. Also, yes, I know I'm using the hint system. I really don't need it at this point, but I like to keep it on. Just, I don't know, there's some kind of primal part of my brain that just tells me to leave it be, which is a lot unlike how Samus feels about these ecosystems. I also think that a hint system like this is great for a closed world exploration based game like this. Just showing you a room off in the distance and telling you find a way to get here without telling you how gets the job done without spoiling too much of the experience. The only time this ever becomes an issue for me is when it starts repeating hints because you haven't gone to this point yet. At that point, yeah, I completely agree, just turn it off. Chozo lore is given to us through these, what is this, a sort of wavy engraving? I thought this was like a pool of water on the wall as a kid that dries up once you scan it. The lore does speak of a well or a fountain, so maybe that's where the connections got lost for me back then. It speaks of a well that gave these Chozo visions of a future, warning of a dark plague that would poison their spring water. This is not to be mistaken with the Great Poison that they later refer to in Chozo lore when talking about Phazon, which does make this a little bit confusing to read for the first time. I'll explain that more later on. Welcome to the Chozo Ruins, which is exactly what it sounds like. Though this is one of the earliest interpretations of a Chozo Ruins in, color. A missile door taunts us as soon as we set foot in the main ruins. Not entirely red like the previous games, but a red device placed over the door, keeping that blue shielding from being disturbed. As you would expect, this device can only be removed with explosive force. We'll get back to this in no time. First, we gotta climb these absolutely massive stairs. Holy shit, how big were these Chozo? Making me think that they had to use morph ball technology just to fit through these doors. Holy shit. I hope you like swarms of smaller fodder enemies because you're going to be seeing a lot of these throughout the game. Taking this role in the Chozo Ruins are the Scarabs, swarms of small, explosive arthropods that sacrifice themselves to protect the nest. And they're actually kind of a threat for the early game. Okay, that's not entirely true, they're really easy to take out. Just don't try to tank the damage. Look at how much energy these fuckers shaved off of me.
Damn, nature, you
These may be ruins, but the Big Bird's old security systems haven't all been petrified just yet. Organic Chozo security systems in the form of ions still remain for the time being. What a cruel little existence, assuming that they're conscious organisms, which maybe they aren't. And they're not perfect either. Despite being security, these things are sensitive to light, so much so that hitting them with the power beam is enough to make them wince. Now, I want to know what is sustaining these things. Do they have a whole network of roots and veins behind them that's absorbing nutrients from the walls? Actually, you know, I would rather not think about it. Wow, real-time reflections! RTX fucking on, my dude! Actually, I'm pretty sure that's just another model on the inside of this thing. And if you've never seen this, I don't blame you. It's almost impossible to make out what this reflection is supposed to be when played at a native resolution. Warwasp hives litter the walls and ceilings of these ruins, infinitely respawning these guys until we could destroy their hives. These were literally the second enemies in the game to be programmed, which I guess would explain how polished their pathfinding is. It really feels like I'm being attacked by giant bees. If you're trying to make your way from one point of the room to the other while just ignoring the enemies inside, yeah, they can be a little bit of a pain, but just give them a couple taps with your power beam, they're not too bad. Plasmites act as those room-brightening fireflies from back in Super Metroid, dying when being touched or obviously being shot at, though the darkness that follows isn't nearly as punishing, especially since every single one of these guys happens to be near water in the game, and the reflection mat of the water is just a solid white color regardless of the room lighting, so it's a lot harder to lose where you are in the room. Though near the water, you're a lot more likely to come across tangleweeds, barely sentient organisms grabbing at small prey for food, and as a result, grabbing and tugging at Samus's feet. Just like a lot of you that I see out on Twitter, please stop showing up in my timeline, thank you. As we descend deeper into the ruins, the little bit of water that hasn't dried up down here, or at least what once was water, becomes more and more corrosive. Old Chozo plumbing devices have higher readings of toxic compounds, all around a massive contraption, reportedly with life forms that sit idly inside, just below this missile expansion. Or I guess missile launcher since we don't have missiles yet. So, come on, this is gonna be a trap. So wait, does this thing know that it's protecting these missiles, or... never mind. The Hive Mecha, or Chozo Totem as 3D modeler for the game James Dargy put it. A Chozo security device that weaponizes local predators for its protection. And the predators that it's chosen are a unique enemy to this fight, Ram War Wasps, or Blood Wasps in Japan, which is a much cooler name, might I add. Ram War Wasps is a goddamn tongue twister. This specific species has evolved a sort of hive mind intelligence, circling and attacking its prey as a single-minded being. This is a really good moment to teach the player about the radar at the top left of the the screen. I spent so many years of my life not even knowing that I could use this thing, and I'm not alone there. Every time I stream this game over on my Twitch, which has been more than once, there's always at least one person in my chat that says that they had no idea you could even use this radar. It's almost hilarious how poorly communicated this is to the player. I consider this thing a boss even though it doesn't have a health bar. Take out the wave of war wasps and then attack the totem once it's left vulnerable. I'm not sure why it's exposing its weak point to us after we kill its babies. Maybe it's like a dog whistle, it's like attracting more war wasps to come fight for it. Thank you for the challenge, oh strange Chozo security system, and thank you for the missiles. Is it supposed to be glowing like that? Fuck you, missile door, I've got explosives now. Oh, I love that little jingle. I never would have thought that Metroid needed its own Zelda-like puzzle-solved jingle, but here we are, and I like it. We're given an energy tank for our efforts, though we're gonna need to come back here with the Morph Ball to get a move on through the rest of this path, which is a trick that Metroid Prime is gonna be using a lot up until the end of the game, giving you a new tool for your kit, missiles in this case, providing you an obstacle to use it on, the missile door, then impeding your path by asking you to come back with another upgrade, the Morph Ball tunnel. Seriously, once you notice this, it is almost impossible to not notice it, and it's quite distracting. And I'm not even saying that this is a bad design philosophy, it's just glaringly obvious once you start paying attention to it. Hey, we could snag a few goodies on the way too. A map station for the ruins, a missile expansion behind this wall, and as an added bonus, a way to render these war wasps nests sterile. Holy shit, that was hard to say. Oh wow, another half-pipe structure! Yo, I love Tony Hawk! That guy looks just like Tony Hawk! Something tells me we're gonna get a skateboard upgrade for our Morph Ball. Alright, where's the manager? I need to get that Morph Ball down from that top shelf, and I'm too short to reach it! Ah, you must be the big one. Well, it was the big one. Ah, shit, I forgot to scan it. How come the Morph Ball on this pedestal is a pinkish color? No, the Varia suit in the NES game was pink, though that's more likely a coincidence. Oh well, it's good to have this thing back. What's the deal, though, with the Morph Ball in this game? Where does Samus go? What is the energy inside of this thing? Is she just turned into a being of pure light in there?
Pure light.
I mean, the trail that it leaves behind when you're rolling is pretty cool, but, where am I?
I banish you to the ball dimension.
Oh, Shriek Bats! Oh, they're just like I remember them. Apparently, they've got an internal temperature of around 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Why is the wildlife around here so explosive? Oh my god, it's a tentacle with an eyeball on the tip. Man, imagine how cool it would be to have an eyeball on the back of your hand. Yeah, I bet it would love looking at this room all the fucking time, which we'll be back to in just a minute. I want to get the charge beam first, and also bombs. The path of corruption leads ever higher. Yeah, because that's where the afterlife is, and also where you will go if you are corrupt. This room sure looks important, but I think we're missing something. You know you're in for some shit when the door is literally locked with an unbreakable seal. We need bombs before we could do anything in this room, so I suppose that our only option for now is... Let me guess, another symbiotic security drone? Actually, kind of. This is closer to an autonomous waste disposal drone that just happens to have another unique breed of war wasps directly above it. These fuckers can fire their stingers over 20 meters. How they manage this without destroying their internal organs is a mystery to me. Imagine the Hive mecha, except waiting to shoot it on a timer rather than having to take out all of the bugs. Just play a bit of flamethrower jump rope, and then shoot the big red fuck me light every time it shows up. Okay, yeah, this one is not symbiotic at all. Hello, bombs. I missed you very briefly. Oh, look at the little jump that Samus did in the cutscene. That's adorable. I admit that I prefer the more mechanical, solid bombs of the previous games over this weird, like, energy-based set of bombs, but the sound design at least accommodates for this aesthetic change. Honestly, for the longest time, I thought that this specific type of bombs were made by this breed of Chozo as some sort of portable battery or something, which explains why you could use this to power various equipment. Except that theory that I had doesn't add up because Samus had this exact type of bomb back in the Orpheon, so it's purely an art direction thing rather than lore. It's a shame though, I think that there's potential there. Oh shit, shriek bats! Oh shit, more! An energy malfunction at the furnace. That doesn't sound good. Did it have anything to do with that white door in the room? Is that an ice beam door? Oh wait, yeah it is. The game just tells us the 3 beams we'll be collecting in our adventure in the key to the left. That's okay, it's not too big of a mystery. Almost every item we collect in this game is an item that's from a previous Metroid game. Very few of these are original power-ups. We're not even able to check out the furnace part of the furnace until we acquire some arachnid powers. But merely visiting this part of the room that doesn't let us access it gets rid of the hint pointing you in the right direction. So first-time players might completely forget to come back here once you have the appropriate ability. It's such a small issue that I think could have been mitigated pretty easy, but whatever, it's not that big of a deal. For now, we can only snag this energy tank again. Though we are pointed in the direction of the Sun Chamber, which sure looks like it's gonna be a boss fight arena from this view. I can only assume that whatever's been poisoning the water hole has been brewing down there. That which fouls the water seeks the sun. That is a badass way of saying that everything corrupted by the great poison below will eventually surface. And I love this kind of cryptic shit. Wait, hold on, do I hear something? Yeah, keep your ear open for this sound. It means that there's an item nearby. That wasn't even close. This is our 3D counterpart to the map, showing us a dot to show us that there's an item in the region. It's not perfect, but it gets the point across. The room for the charge beam builds on the scanning mechanic in a way that we're going to be seeing a lot in this game. You have to search the room to scan these 4 Chozo runes in order to activate a way out. I'm assuming that there's some kind of tech involved here. I know these Chozo were more religious and focused on the paranormal, but I mean, how else would Samus be able to interface with this? It's totally possible that the suit is just that versatile, but I feel like there's something more here. Holy shit, there were no safety precautions with that door. That shit could cut a dude in half. Now nothing will cut me in half. Now let's say we blast some eyeballs now, shall we? No shit, right, I can't go this way yet. Wait, they grow back? Alright, are you ready for round 2? Of rune scanning? One of these runes is under a bunch of red tangleweeds, which it won't let me scan yet for some reason. Now how will I know the very specific lore explanation for how they hurt me? Ah! Alright, I didn't even know that that was a rune. I was just trying to scan shit to get more lore. I wonder what that symbol means. Ah, I see. It's a giant blood flower. Oh shit, it's got the wood tower battle chip. I mean, I guess plant tower? Oh, that is more than just a blood flower. Flagra, the source of the toxin that's overtaken these ruins. A mutated super bug plant thing that, due to its massive mutated size, requires a fuckload of sunlight to photosynthesize and produce enough glucose to maintain itself. Its outer carapace is practically indestructible, but if we could cut off its supply of sunlight and take a shot at its roots... Yeah, burn, motherfucker. Alright, who's flipping those mirrors back up? I want to see the man behind the curtain! By the way, are you tired of this music yet? Yeah, me too. The NTSC edition of Metroid Prime for the GameCube, for whatever reason, the full theme is in there, but it just doesn't play. This was fixed in future releases of the game in other regions, but wouldn't be fixed in NTSC regions until the Wii release. And on the topic of that, back when I used to play this game as a kid, I would pretend and make believe that the spring ball was actually in this game whenever I made it to this boss fight. Cutting off Flagra's sunlight will make his body slam into the floor, and when he does so, Samus's morph ball gets bounced up into the air. I would literally just play this as a small child and be like, yeah, I got the spring ball, look! Then I would time that with the jump. It's crazy that that absolutely ridiculous childhood-like fantasy became reality in the Wii port. There's one thing I prefer about the Wii port over the GameCube port, it's that that one has the spring ball. You have to be really quick to slam all these mirrors back up, and the closest that Samus has to a sprint here is her lock-on sidestep, which I think is the intention. This arena is perfectly circular, so you can just lock on to Flagra and just keep sidestepping. Now let me see a squirt. Yo, we get the screw attack early in this game. No, I'm just kidding. That's just the various suit. This game made an important distinction for me growing up, that the screw attack has a 6-point lightning bolt on it, but the various suit, or really just Samus's logo, has this 13-point lightning bolt on it. That's a lot closer to an S for Samus, and also suit. No, okay, that's fucking stupid. I also really miss that incredibly vague-looking atom-looking thing that represented the various suit from previous games, but whatever, this thing's pretty cool. I want this on a coin. Oh god, it tickles! There's the various suit that we love and know. Added defense, heat resistance, and big-ass shoulders. It is still susceptible to heat-based attacks, and I'm pretty sure that no suit in this game offers protection from lava, so this is really as far as it gets in terms of elemental resistances. But yes, with the defeat of Flagra, the water has returned to normal, and this corrosive Flagra piss is no longer a threat to us. Sadly, most of the underwater paths that have now opened to us are inaccessible until later in the game, though in case you took any damage, you can use these ultra energies just outside of the Flagra fight to restore a whole ass E-tank's worth of energy. Oh look, it's an atomic! Ow. This doesn't seem like the right kind of environment to house these beings of literally pure energy.
Pure energy.
Much like Samus is when she's in the morph ball. Also, these actually aren't the atomics from Super Metroid, even though they look practically identical. These are actually Bombus, and are much more of a unique enemy than the flying bullet sponges we saw in the 2D games. These things are immune to practically everything except for electric-based weaponry. No, I'm not talking about the screw attack, that's a really good guess. Screw attack isn't in this game though. These things are attracted to other energy sources to absorb and feed off of them, presumably. If this thing was a Pokemon, its final evolution would be Electro from the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that means they'll make a beeline for you if you're using the charge beam. I always saw the yellow orb in the center of it when it rushes towards you as a big cartoony nose, like it's charging at me while it's sniffing, and I hate that. Hey, does this game have fall damage? Is something that everyone says before jumping down a massive pit. Judging by the noise that Samus made, I'm gonna say that that probably hurt. But the suit energy is a-okay. We've got some cordite barriers blocking us from solving this rune sequence, so we're not gonna be able to make it back up there until we have something that breaks cordite. Coincidentally, the other way back into Flagra's arena has been blocked off with weeds. It's gonna be a bit, but we do need to come back here eventually. Hey, remember double bomb jumping? You can't infinitely bomb jump anymore, but you can still do this. Oh my god, I forgot to pop the other bomb slots. Jesus Christ, how do I even play this game? Fuck it, I'm not jumping down there. I don't want to backtrack all the way back to this elevator. This elevator to Magmore Caverns, I mean. Does anybody else get this feeling of anxiety and dread whenever using an elevator in the GameCube release of this game? It's Grisby! Oh, I love that name so much. Grisby, please, I'm sorry! Alright, I'm taking a minute to listen to our audience, and from what I hear, you guys want more Super Metroid callbacks. So how about one of the most iconic pieces from the soundtrack to accompany the Magmore Caverns? No, this does not mean that we'll be fighting Ridley down here. There's actually no bosses here in Magmore. Well, okay, there was a boss made for this arena, and that boss is still in the game. He's just not here. I'll explain that when we see him later. Hey, are you wondering what these caves are named after? 4 missiles is enough to blast their head off. Code for the game suggests that these were originally supposed to be the Magdalites from Super Metroid. You know those lava enemies that literally have a humanoid hand that throws more lava at you? They were even gonna look like them at one point until Nintendo asked them to make an original design. Also, Magdalite Caverns doesn't exactly roll off the tongue as well. Give it another, what, 8 years or so before we see those guys in 3D? Also, those aren't eyes on the Magmore. They're more like sonar glands and have developed a stronger sense of smell, meaning that they're about 1 step away from opening up their own attorney's office with their friend Foggy. Speaking of Fog, remember the bulls from Super Metroid? I mean puffers? Man, what is with these enemies that are just renamed to different shit to fit in this game? They're way less threatening in this game than they were in the 2D games. They'll leave some hazardous shit behind, but you can just wait for it to dissipate, and they don't bum rush you in this one, so you're good. I always loved these little Triclopses as a kid. I thought that they were adorable. Dumb little bastards that collect food and save them for later. And can you guess what they think that my bombs are? Adorable. All right, this is where I admit something kind of embarrassing from my childhood. Have you ever heard of Triopses, a real organism? When I first saw them, I thought they were like mutant tadpole-looking things. If you've ever heard of sea monkeys, they're sold kind of like those. An at-home kit where you can raise them in your own fucking aquarium. I shit you not, I begged for a kit of one of those because I misread the label as Triclopses and thought, holy shit, they're real! I still took care of them. I was like 12. I still thought it was interesting. I kind of missed them. Hey, not Adam. I think I found their pirate base. Fuckers have been siphoning magma from the planet for thermal energy and very low-level phazon mining. And in this base, we learn another motive for the pirates beyond galactic domination. Profit. Selling minerals and items of interest to their monks, as the lore describes. Because, you know, what game doesn't have space capitalism? Let's go pillage that planet over there and totally destroy its wildlife for the sake of money. Oh, let's go. First try, baby. No spring ball, only bomb jumps. We don't have access to most of Magmore with our current jump height, so we're gonna need to transition from a super hot region to a super cold region. Have you ever seen those videos of a metal barrel going from hot to cold really fast and just collapsing in on itself? Yeah, thank God Samus's suit isn't doing that right now. Phendrana Drifts, our 4th region of Metroid Prime, or I guess the 5th if you count the Orphean. Oh, Samus's walk cycle there is not adjusted for the total space that she covers. That is very funny looking. Also, what the fuck is a Phendrana? If there's Magmores, then surely there's a Phendrana, right? Hello? We've got a save station right off the bat and some pirate lore to read off to the side, kind of like reading the newspaper while taking a shit, which is fitting because taking a shit is what the pirates sound like they're going through right now. All these phazon experiments are really taking their toll. All 3 of these little flavor text lore tidbits mention how terrible their work environment has been since test subjects have started escaping captivity, demanding all surviving personnel report in to secure lockdown or suffer a 30% ration reduction. What do you even put in these space pirate rations? Do they need to cook their food, or can they break down the toxins that humans otherwise can't? Basically, I'm just wondering if they have a working appendix. What am I saying? They probably just eat starbursts. No, not the candy. I mean the plants in Talon Overworld. Though the candy, would be kind of funny. Trying to scan these flicker bats is always a pain, but I guess that's kind of the point. Somehow, these fuckers are able to avoid the known color spectrum and require X-ray imaging, which is kind of concerning given how close these are to the space pirates, as they'll probably find a way to reverse engineer this and use it for themselves. We need to morph ball through this cave to lift the lockdown that the pirates have set, which feels weird from a gameplay standpoint. It's kind of out of place since no other region of the game really makes you do this, but from a lore perspective, it's cool, especially since we're nearing these pirate outposts. I don't exactly know what the deal is with these purple bamboos though. They're not attracted to my charge shots, so I guess that they're just satisfied with the energy that they're siphoning from these corridors? Okay, that actually makes a bit of sense. Whatever the case, the pirates have learned to use this to their advantage, using them as living security around most of pirate territory. It's a nice fucked up parallel to the Chozo of Talon Overworld, or Talon 4. What happened to Talon 1 through 3?
Babies must sleep. Babies must rest.
Oh shit, it's a xenomorph's head on a bipedal body. Okay, I guess the xenomorphs are also bipedal. You know what I mean. It's like a raptor without forelimbs. Baby Shogoths. I mean she-goths. Enemies that, for now, require you to be on top of your sidestepping game to get the drop on. Destroy their shell and blast the juicy center afterwards. It's pretty easy, especially if you combo a missile after a charge shot. But, you know, when there's more than one, they can be a bit of a nuisance. Hold the what? Propulsion units cannot maintain lift to support a power suit, which is a nice way of saying that they'll descend when I step on them. Oh, did I say descend? I meant violently explode like everything else on this godforsaken planet. I have to go fast! I need my next ball! Oh, wow, speaking of going fast, the Boost Ball, our first upgrade that we didn't begin the game with, and our first item that debuts in the Metroid Prime series. It's not a permanent speed buff. You have to hold down the jump button while in Morph Ball mode to build energy and then launch yourself in the direction of your current velocity. If you're in a tunnel or just going in a straight line, it's actually faster to charge up these boosts while not holding a direction on the joystick, especially in these windy Morph Ball paths. You go fucking plaid, dude. I really want to believe that this is how the Chozo tribe learned to traverse this land. A whole ass city of birds rolling everywhere and catapulting up these half pipes just to get to work. Yeah, I'm sorry, we don't use a skateboard to get past these half pipes. His name may be Tony Hawk, but he ain't Choni Chozo. I couldn't even say it right. Just like the one all the way back at the beginning of Talon Overworld. Okay, actually it's not that bad. The path back to Magmore is pretty short, and there's an elevator that takes us right back to Talon Overworld right next to this elevator we're about to take. Oh, speak of the devil, I guess it must be fucking opposite day. Ridley's chilling out in the cold place rather than the hot place. Yeah, okay, great job at subverting my expectations here, dudes. Also, his shadow isn't animating. Is he just T-posing up there until he comes into frame? I'm telling you, dude, he doesn't need those wings to fly. Oh, dude, it's one of those big termite nests. Ever seen those things? They're fucking massive. Scans indicate incubating life forms below. Oh, good, they'll have something to replace them. Oh, there's the blood flowers. Oh, no. Oh, shit. Get that away from me. This appears to be too smooth to be natural. Gee, you don't fucking say. Next thing you're gonna tell me is that these engraved hieroglyphs are actually natural erosion. Finally, the high jump. Now we're talking. Or the space jump, that's fine too. This is nothing like the space jump from the 2D games, it's more of a double jump, which is still really handy. I'm not looking to gift horse in the mouth. I used to excuse this in lore as this being a different type of Chozo, but maybe it's also because these are the space jump boots rather than simply the space jump. Either way, we've got our main movement upgrade. Yeah, fuck it, I'll stop by the ship, why not? Who doesn't stop at the ship at this point in the game? I gotta see my ass shaking with that new air conditioning suit! I'm a little underwhelmed that the music doesn't swell up at this point in the game, kinda like when the music swells when you revisit your ship in Super Metroid, but hey, whatever. It's not that big of a deal, it's just something I would like, you know? Let's see, what could we grab back on our way to Phendrana? Might as well see what's at the top of this pirate structure here in Magmore. A hamster wheel! That was the lamest hamster wheel I've ever used. Also, where are all these metal balls that the pirates are using to activate these things? First those doors back at the Orpheon, and now these, like, generator-looking things? Where's the keys, dumbass? Taking this path leads us to our first Chozo artifact, an almost literal plot MacGuffin that we need to collect in order to finish the game. I'm really not a fan of how these things are implemented into the game itself, and is probably the biggest gripe I have with the game that's keeping me from saying that it's perfect. But later games do this better, I'm not gonna harp on it too hard here, especially since everyone under the sun seems to have the same issue with this. I'll explain the lore behind these things in just a little bit, just stay with me. That is a pretty fucking awesome looking Chozo statue back there though. It's cool that there's various other Chozo statues to represent these other tribes. They're not all the same bird robot looking things we saw back in Z babies. And also SR-388, I forgot about that one. Like, damn, look at those robes. This dude's dripping. Oh great, parasites and pirates. I guess we know where the Orphean got them from. Don't forget to scan these ice parasites while you can. You could miss these guys permanently if you're too reckless or simply don't care. Statue depicts a Chozo balancing a plane of existence in its hands. I am so sorry, dude, but I need to use that existence as a platform to get up there.
To pass my gaze, seek my twins.
Oh, you mean this one? So, does this thing grow back like the ions, or is this a one-time security system? That seems like a pretty big oversight. That wave beam's looking kinda sus. Surely it's not gonna be that easy, right? Yep, I had a feeling. See what kind of wildlife our distant space cousins have weaponized this time. Oh god, Mama's home. Where were you when I was fighting your children? You don't seem to have kept an eye on them with one of the 53 eyes you have on you. You are a terrible parent. Adult she-goths. Invulnerable to most beam attacks with a bizarre electromagnetic field capable of absorbing Samus's power beam to charge its own, like, mouth blast things. Though doing so tires them out pretty quickly, leaving them open to kinetic blast to the face. Get rapid missile, dummy. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. No, the beams don't stack in this game like in Super, but that's understandable. Samus's beams didn't stack back in the NES game, so why would they stack here? Though this is a step up because Samus can now freely switch between the beams that she's collected, rather than dumping whatever beams she had previously obtained like it's a gun in Halo. It's a nice in-between. This is the wave beam in appearance only, really. Instead being an electric-based weapon rather than wall-piercing. Again, I thought this is because it's a different tribe of Chozo that created their own wave beam. In the end, pointing this out is kind of just semantics. It's just unique enough to not feel like a substitute for the power beam, but it's got some unique properties that make it pretty good in combat. Full homing capabilities as long as Samus is locked on, and it could stun larger enemies with a charge shot, leaving them primed and ready for a good missile punishing. You can use missiles while using other beams, but I think that from a coding standpoint, Samus's arm cannon can only fire missiles while using her power beam, so when you press the missile button, it'll quickly revert back to the power beam, and then revert back to the beam that you were using before, and you can't fire while it's doing this sort of transition. This also means that you can't use the rapid fire missile exploit with any other beams than the power beam, but that's fine. Also, that sort of hard light look that the cannon gets when swapping between beams is fucking awesome. If you look closely, you can see Samus's hand inside the beam changing its gestures. I could never really see this when playing the game at a native resolution. It's really cool. And now we have a way of taking out these bombus. Wow, that was violent. Alright, if I had to take a guess, I need to shoot the cavity inside that stalactite with something concussive, kinda like a missile. Hell yeah. Ah shit, hold on. Fucking ice shrink bats, the bastards. I know I don't have to scan them exclusively in this room, but these guys disappear just like the ice parasites later in the game, so I'd rather just get it out of the way now before I completely forget. Alright, I'm seeing more morph ball spinners, which means that we're definitely getting closer to pirate facilities. I know that there's a timing puzzle here, but I see a hole that is just my size. Alright, we got a bit more toilet reading. This one points us in the direction of the Hydro Lab just through the nearby purple door. I'm assuming that these things use a specific voltage to open, because otherwise, how do the ninjas... how do the pirates have their own wave beam tech to open these? Oh god, I wasn't off base calling them ninjas. We've got stealth camo up in here.
That ninja.
Okay, it's actually technically not the same because they're visible beyond the X-ray spectrum. You still can't lock onto them until they're at full opacity, though. What's up, bitches? I'm home! Oh, good. That makes my job a little easier. Yes, come one, come all. Come to Mama to face your death. So one of the first times I ever played Metroid Prime as a kid was borrowing it from a friend. They couldn't play the game without having the TV muted because the ambience kind of freaked them out. We were pretty young, we were still in elementary school, but I didn't feel the same until I got to the space pirate music. I don't know what it is. Obviously, I'm over it today, I'm in my fucking 20s, but back then as a kid and even somewhat into my middle school years, this music just freaked me out. I always love looking back at how much of a wimp I was with this kind of stuff. I literally got nightmares as a kid from the opening boss of Mega Man Legends. I can't stress enough how stupid I was. So I don't exactly know what this is implying. This log says that Phazon binds to Phazon ore, and I think that that means that they're using Phazon to attract more Phazon in the mining process, kind of like using a metal detector to find shit at the beach. Whatever the case, Phazon does bind to stone fairly well, and thermal imaging can be used to make any vulnerable cleavage points visible to break down the stone easier, which they later used to easily identify concentrated Phazon in their test subjects as weak points so that they could put them down if they grow too unstable. And one of those test subjects for this, a Project Titan, has been acting up recently and moved to Phendrana's quarantine caves. You know, reading this, I would expect some big monster with rocks bound to it, not, welcome to the Pirates Hydra Labs, their Phendrana research base. Did I mention there's pirates here too, making their return from the Orpheon? I shouldn't need to, actually. What am I saying? These ones have their organs intact. It's also a neat bit of world building to show that the space pirates are more than just a single race of lobstermen. There's concept art for a space pirate that looks a lot like these crustacean boys, but showing that it's an intergalactic group that other species have opted into, it makes the universe feel bigger. And it's not like it's a completely different group of space pirates either. I mean, these guys were able to rebuild Ridley and also had Metroids from Zebes. Now, it's totally possible that these actually are the same breed of space pirates from Super Metroid, and it's merely an art direction change. Kinda like Zero going from Mega Man X to Mega Man Zero. He didn't get a makeover with a new armor in canon, this is just a completely different artistic interpretation. I wish that wasn't the case. I love the Archie Comics interpretation of having this neat little in-between design for the hunters, but the Archie Comics are anything but canon, really. This is a Metroid video, so I'm gonna end this topic here before I get too off track. Given how delicately handled the lore in this game at least tries to be, I think it's more likely that this is a different species. Anyways, I hope you guys have some popcorn on hands because I'm about to take a massive lore dump on each and every one of you right now. Talon 4 wasn't always in the pirates' crosshairs. In fact, it was the Phazon meteor that brought the pirates' attention here roughly 20 years ago, long after this tribe of Chozo were wiped out. Now, the time between the Chozo dying and the meteor crashing down, I'm not entirely sure. Could have just been a few minutes, could be fucking centuries, I have no idea. We'll talk about the Chozo in just a little bit. Phazon, as we see it in these pirate bases, has heavy regulations around them for the pirate's safety, and if regulations exist, it means that some poor soul really fucked up to inspire these rules. Pirates exposed to raw Phazon developed simple radiation sickness, and in uncommon cases, violent mood swings and hallucinations. How much you want to bet that they thought that they were seeing ghosts? Yeah, those weren't hallucinations, my guys, though the local wildlife had been a bit more fortunate. Well, assuming that you consider not dying while exposed to radiation fortunate. Pirates would totally be the kind of people to say that Phazon only kills 2% of the people that it infects like it's a good thing, completely ignoring the worst case of space tumors they've ever experienced. Knowing this though, they began willfully exposing the wildlife to Phazon, hoping to create some beneficial mutations. It's kind of like what we've been doing to various vegetables over the last few years. I remember being told in high school that this is how we created the modern strawberry. I'm not sure how true that is, but speaking of big, fat, and juicy mutations, making it to the top of the Hydra Labs, we learned the expected. We knew that they recovered Metroids from Turian, and this is where they've set them up shop, which, you know, makes sense given the cold environment. Those little fuckers hate the cold, even when infused with Phazon, kind of. A specific new Phazon mutation for the Metroids can even be seen in these holograms for the rooms. Logs suggesting that Phazon has impacted their ability to drain energy, but mutated their fangs into tentacles. Hey, just like their artwork from the NES manual. Wonder how much of that is a coincidence. Probably all of it. In literally any other version of this game, we would actually see this mutation in Phendrana, but here in the first NTSC release, you won't see these guys until damn near the end of the game. What they don't mention here is that unlike SR388 or Zebes before it, whose atmosphere tended to spark beneficial mutations in the Metroids, Metroids on Talon 4 seem to have actually regressed a bit. Every Metroid we see in this game is born without a mouth, leaving their talons the only method of leeching energy from their prey, resulting in weaker Metroids in general, left vulnerable to conventional weaponry on top of their susceptibility to ice. The pirates are just as baffled by these things as we are. They've been able to isolate the equivalent of a digestive tract, spanning from the Metroid's fangs to their nuclei, but with no idea of what this energy they're draining is and how they're consuming it. But whatever it is, the pirates believe that they can use this for their ascension, which I believe is a leftover fragment from an original plot point of the story. An earlier draft of the game suggests that Phazon wasn't from outer space, but in fact the life energy from Metroids that had been scooped up from their remains in Turian, being spliced into other pirates' DNA via cloning. There's not too much known about Phazon from these earlier drafts to my knowledge. The idea of the pirates figuring out how to drain Metroid juice would open some pretty interesting plot holes up for later in the canon. The pirates' drive to figure this out though didn't last too long, opting to try to weaponize the Metroids rather than trying to reverse engineer them. Few Metroids could wipe out armies, they say, shifting their goals into trying to eliminate the weakness to cold through Phazon infusement. Spoiler alert, they succeed in this but don't even know it. We'll see that much later in the game. Also, just wait until a completely unrelated group of space fascists succeed in figuring this out too. Also, this plot point is retconned in the trilogy release of Prime 1 because we need to make the pirates even dumber than they currently are. Oh, holy shit, a horizontal door! I'm gonna jump through it. I'm gonna fucking jump through it. Yeah! Pirates have been having a bit of an ice beetle infestation down here. I can only imagine that this is what the turrets are for. Oh, you know, that actually explains a lot. These turrets were made for dealing with ground-burrowing, slow beetle fuckers, not intergalactic radioactive parasites that could climb any fucking surface. No wonder the Orphean fell as fast as it did. You think these ones are susceptible to overloading? Ah, that's funny. Yo, these fuckers got a whole ass holographic observatory of the solar system. Let's get this shit booted up, fellas. Alright, roll call. Billium. Or is it Bilium? Bilium sounds funnier. A planet overtaken by a sentient virus. Quintabula, named after a prominent disease on the planet inducing double vision on anyone exposed to the atmosphere. Ormine, a wasteland covered in a nuclear winter. The planet of the week, Talon 4, a once thriving Goldilocks planet predicted to become a wasteland in the next 20 years. And our dear old maybe home planet, maybe not Zebes, a barely habitable planet with a favorable crust for living below the surface. This is how you know that this is a prequel before reading anything else in the game, because this shit is still in the solar system. Also, some of these planets are going clockwise and the others are going counterclockwise, which might mean that some of these are exoplanets that got caught in the star's orbit. When solar systems are formed from space dust, I assume that everything that clumps up orbiting that center of mass would all go the same direction, kind of like a toilet bowl. I mean, maybe not. I'm not an expert at this. I just think it's cool and I read about it. A lot of my knowledge comes from books that I read when I was growing up, and probably were heavily simplified so that dumbass kids like me could understand it. So much like a lot of my YouTube comments section when it comes to sex and gender expression, I should probably check some up-to-date papers and try to educate myself to be a better person. Alright, are you ready for a short break from the lore? Do you want to blow some shit up? Me too. Hell fucking yeah, super missiles are back. Kind of. This is more of an extension of our regular missiles. Not like in Fusion where all of our missiles are upgraded to super missiles as a flat upgrade, but a beam combo that costs us 5 regular missiles to use, activated by pressing the missile button while charging the power beam. We get different combos for the other beams later on. This isn't to be mistaken with the beam combos from Super Metroid that used power bombs as ammo. Honestly, it's totally possible that Prime's beam combos weren't even inspired by this. But in terms of beam combos, Prime 1 really blows its load early. The super missiles are objectively the most efficient. There's no contest. That's not to say that the other ones are bad, but this thing does 6 missiles worth of damage, basically giving you a whole ass free missile, making this great for boss fights. And are you ready for some motherfuckers to try them on? Alright, you only need 3 missiles to take these guys out, so you're technically wasting 2 missiles by using a super missile. Fuck it, have some fun, dude. It's not like they're gonna be hard to come by later on. Fucking obliterated, holy shit. Speaking of the jellyfish devil, I have it in my notes that this was record time for encountering a Metroid this early in the campaign, and that I forgot about all of Metroid 2. This one's name is Starrins.
Hey, I did it! Look at Starrins.
Alright, I'm sorry, no more brain scratch references that are also Homestar Runner references in disguise. Actually, no promises. Killing Metroids without the Ice Beam just feels so fucking wrong. I know Zabesian Metroids could also be killed by 3 power bombs, but come on, those are like fucking mini Davy Crockett's. Uh-oh. I mean, I totally meant to do that. Get his ass, little dude! Oh my god, it tanked a super missile. These guys are not as wimpy as I thought. Keyword is as wimpy. It shouldn't be any surprise that the pirates are trying to infuse themselves with Phazon to create super soldiers. Codename Project Helix. Yeah, you see that vat of giblets there? That was one of their volunteers for their super soldier program, the elite pirates. The giblets in this tank, though, specifically Experiment 7526, are the remnants of an enemy cut pretty early into the production of the game. Concept art exists for this creature, and we can piece together what it would have looked like by stitching together all of these giblets that are in this tank. It was intended to be a Frankenstein's monster of a pirate project with the lobster claw of the original crustacean space pirates designed for the game, the abdomen of what I'm assuming is a giant war wasp, and unmistakably the head and body of a Gamma Metroid, spouting tentacles that would have foreshadowed a certain Phazon-infused Metroid that we'd see at the end of the game. I didn't even realize that that was a Gamma Metroid until I saw a post by that Metroid guy. Nice name, by the way. We should join forces and take over this godforsaken Earth. Maybe start the Legion of Guys, I don't know. This would have been a really ambitious enemy. It's a shame that we never got to see it realized, but at least parts of it made it into the game. Literally parts of it, giblets. On top of violently losing test subjects for this, Project Titan has been placed on indefinite hold. Whatever it is, they're having a hard time taming it, and the casualties just aren't making it worth it. Yeah, that's great. I'll have to put it down with my own 2 hands, or cannons. Cannon, singular. Oh, hey, there's those ice beetles. Hey, Captain, I think you missed a spot. Oh, this room is uncomfortably dark. Oh, great, they're here too! Well, if the power's gonna go out, some night vision is gonna come in handy. Or thermal vision, that's good enough. Good thing my suit is compatible with this kind of tech. I'm assuming this is either Chozo in Origin or the power suit. It really is just that modular. I'm guessing that since I could use my scan visor to decode their shit instantly, it's probably the latter. The suit might actually come in handy for some espionage. Metal Gear Metroid when? Are you telling me that this entire facility's power was hinging on that thing's force field? That's fucking convenient. Though on top of being able to see in the dark, we can now see conduits that are inside of the walls that can be powered up with the wave beam, and can also see shadow pirates while they're cloaked. Though the missiles won't home in on them while they're cloaked, even if you're locked on. I guess I just assumed that these things were Bluetoothed into Samus's suit to determine homing coordinates. Whatever, I guess that's a fair trade. Does the wave beam provide enough voltage to keep that thing running? Actually, yes, it does. You never have to come back to repower these conduits when they're charged. I'm guessing it's jump-starting a generator somewhere behind the scenes. This thing could solve a goddamn energy crisis, goddamn. Oh, it's one of those security bastards from the cutscene. Oh, that's much more than just a camera. That thing's packing heat. Yes, grow, my beautiful child. Grow big and strong to destroy your captors. What? Remember those cordite structures back at the Chozo ruins? Why is this thing over pirate tech? I know that these structures were formerly Chozo, but why are there space pirate nodes under these? The space pirates never struck me as trying to be respectful to religious sites and structures. Hello, Quarantine Cave, I'm here for your Titan.
It's a rock! It's more rocks! Oh, my arm!
Oh my god, Linus has been watching too much Galaxy Quest! Say hi to Titan, Thardus, a sentient being of Phazon-infused stone. Sure is nice of the pirates to give this guy a proper name after locking him up in this room. I would love to know more about the biology of this thing. Like, we have carbon-based life forms on Earth with barely anything resembling a consciousness. Meanwhile, Phazon is able to give chunks of primarily silica tetrahedra a full-blown consciousness and instincts of self-preservation. Okay, so I actually had to look that up. Silica tetrahedra accounts for roughly 95% of the Earth crust. This molecule is 1 part silicon and 4 parts oxygen, and we've observed vegetation and photosynthetic algae with silicon as part of its natural structure. So I guess the likelihood of some radioactive primordial soup laying the groundworks for a silicon-based life form is one of the less far-fetched pieces of fiction that this game is trying to sell us on. Granted, that takes this 100% impossible piece of fiction down to, say, 95%, but that's still fascinating to me. This guy was conceptualized as the boss of Magmor Caverns, or quote, the boss of a large lava pit arena, which is heavily implied to be Magmor. Maybe this was still planned to be in Phendrana, and this place just happened to have a lava pool in it at one point, but I doubt that that's the case. This boss room originally housed a 6-limb ice gorilla, and was replaced by Thardus due to time constraints while he was being worked on for Magmor. But hey, that's okay. That design didn't completely go to waste and was finally reused and given life in Metroid Federation Force. And you know what they were called in that game? The Ice Titans. Remember what Thardus' codename was? Project Titan? That is a funny coincidence. I also just can't see this room the same way again. I was streaming the Metroid Prime Remaster the day that it came out, and Mike Wicken showed up in my chat, was just casually dropping facts like, oh, this is one of the first rooms we actually designed for the game, and stuff like that. I can't believe that even happened. Yeah, cross that off my bucket list. I showed him earlier in the video. Oh god, he's photosynthesizing! He does this thunder move like twice in his entire fight. Once to fog up the arena and the other to clear the fog? Okay, that makes less sense to me. You fight this guy by switching to your thermal visor and blasting at the chunks of concentrated Phazon as they appear. Once that Phazon touches oxygen, it just overloads the thermal visor for some reason. Your thermal visor gets overloaded in Magmor Caverns, which makes sense, but nothing else in the game, at least to my knowledge, overloads your visor outside of environmental factors. Anyways, just repeat this cycle until the boss eventually dies. It's pretty straightforward, but I love that it ends with destroying the central chunk on his chest. It's a great way to cap off the fight in a way that's really satisfying. Hey! That's it! You just lost your ball privileges! Alright, so was this just powering Thardus, or what the fuck happened here? Also, holy shit, the Spider Ball is back. It's wild to think that the Spider Ball never returned for another original 2D Metroid game. Closest we got is its successor in the Spider Magnet, which I guess would be a good name for this thing too, since the Spider Ball in this game can only use these magnetic tracks rather than adhering to any surface. Which, yeah, that would be really busted for a 3D game like this. Frankly, that would be busted for most games, and it's a miracle that they made it work in Metroid 2. Hey, at least we could get a move on now. Alright, never mind, go fuck yourself. Oh hey, ain't that convenient. The elevator to Magmor near Thardus leads us to one of the few rooms at Magmor Caverns that doesn't overload the thermal visor. That's because you need to use it for this timed morph ball puzzle by activating 3 conduits in the room. It's a fun little puzzle, using multiple tools in Samus's kit to cool down paths of magma in sequence to get this energy tank. Also, this might have showed up earlier in the game, but I love this music that kicks in when you're doing some kind of timed or multi-switch puzzle. It's really charming, you know? Oh my god, it's Spore Spawn! Or Magma Spawn, that is close enough. Oh shit, is this the room that I think it is? Hold on, let me see if I remember how to do this. Nope, fuck it, I'll just come back later. Come one, come all to play Crush a Magmor. Let's go again! Ah, he's back. Hold still, motherfucker. I still need to scan you. Thank you. Abnormally low temperature at the ruins. You mean that malfunctioning furnace, or do you mean something like the ice beam? At least I could climb up this way back to Flagra's chamber with the spider ball and these cordite things not being a bother to me anymore. I could have worded that so much better. Let me try one more time. I can break these now. Fuck your spider ball bomb jumping puzzles and fuck your oculuses. Oculi? Whatever. I could just go around. Uh-huh. Yep, that looks normal. That part is not. Alright, before we get too much further, let me catch you up on the Chozo lore real quick. As we know, the Chozo tribe of Talon 4 amputated itself from the technology of the previous tribes. Not out of malice, but as a way to become one with nature of the universe. Bridges made from branches, hallways caressed by pure waters, as they said. And at the highest point of their civilization was a wellspring of pure water that flowed across their camps. Believing that this spring water could offer glimpses of the past and future, and warning of a pouring darkness across the planet. This tribe still partook in the ritual of building their own breeds of Chozo statues, which the other tribes have intentionally littered across the solar system as a symbol for their peace in lands that they think only know war, threatening that anyone who defaces or destroys their statue will only face their wrath, which is probably the most imperial shit I've heard about the Chozo up until this point. I guess these guys were an offshoot of the Makan tribe. Nevertheless, they left their statues here as a sign of their hospitality. And also, if it wasn't clear to you before, it wasn't the Phazon meteor that wiped out this Chozo. Instead, they passed away peacefully with the goal of becoming one with the planet. I'm guessing they just didn't have children to surpass them. It was actually the Phazon meteor that woke their resting spirits against their will, all as the planet they bonded with had been brought corruption. They feared that this was the sign of a prophecy, a worm born from parasites nurtured in a poison womb, spreading rot they could only observe. As for the prophecy also speaks of a great defender, bearing ancient armor and weapons of the Chozo. The concept of there being an afterlife and ghosts in the Metroid universe is a little wild to me, but these ghosts are tangible enough to have been influenced by the Phazon, its corruption reaching this plane of the paranormal, driving the Chozo spirits mad and crumbling their wills and minds. And so as their last attempt, their last stand to save the planet that they considered home, they focused the last of their energy to construct the Cradle, a temple to contain the Phazon meteor set afloat above the impact site, separating it from the rest of the planet, and at its heart, a cipher, a mystical lock powered by 12 artifacts containing the last of the power they could muster in their ethereal state. The deed had been done, many Chozo disappearing from the rest and struggling to focus in the present time, stuck in a flux observing past, present, and future, and in this flux, they see their great defender, Samus, as she hunted the corrupted, giving the Chozo a glimmer of hope before their passing beyond the beyond. Or so they think. In reality, their spirits had become corrupted, honoring only destruction and disruption, believing life to be taunting them, manifesting into physical forms through sheer envy, an anger that was only amplified when the pirates arrived on the planet. A second plague, they call it, a marauding force that attempted to invade their cradle to no avail. The pirates may have uncovered fragments of the cipher, but don't know of its purpose yet. They're blinded by delusions of power from the Great Poison and assimilate their sanctuary into their expanse. Their hope only remains in Samus, the once fledgling orphan of a savaged planet, their warrior clad in Chozo armor, wielding weapons their hands once held, fueled by a righteous fury. Before their spirits could give into the darkness, they left these messages for Samus, praying that she could retrieve these artifacts, complete the cipher, and destroy the worm of the cradle, vowing that if their spirits must turn to aggression and destruction, that the violence they commit against these pirates will be a necessary evil. And all of that is ignoring the pirate lore. Anyways, these Chozo ghosts are here to harass us a bit, and I know that some of you guys have some really strong opinions about these guys. You can't go 10 minutes into a discussion about Metroid Prime without someone bringing up that the Chozo ghosts are a hit against this game. And to be honest, yeah, I kind of agree. I really hate fighting these guys, but I think that you're supposed to hate fighting them until we get an item way later in the game that turns them into a complete joke. I'm not gonna say that they're fun though, even with this item. And they don't always lock the door when they appear. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I don't exactly know what triggers this, but more often than not, especially in the later game, you could just fucking leave the room while they spawn. Though we have no option here but to fight these ones. And for now, I'm gonna rely a little bit more on my radar so I can see them when they appear. They're immune to everything except for our power beam. However, that also means that by extension, they're weak to our super missiles, which definitely eases the frustration down a bit. You have to deal with these guys more reactively rather than aggressively, which sounds an awful lot like criticisms that I hear against the Marauders in Doom Eternal, except I love fighting the Marauders, so obviously there's more to it than that. Ah!
Grandma's died!
So do you think that these ghosts remembered the Chozo artifacts, or that they just happened to be here? So am I killing them in their ghost state, or am I just making them take a rest? Because they will respawn if you re-enter the room. So I guess I just want to know if those are new ghosts, or the same ghosts that have just recovered. Alright, if we're done with these ghost stories, I'd like to take a quick trip to the bowling alley. Roll me, Big Bird! Awesome! If you ever wanted to know why the Chozo statues are always posed like this, it's presumed that they're holding their hands out as if asking an offering for their dead, which I'm assuming is unique to Talon 4, because why are the ones on Zebes always holding experimental Chozo weaponry? You'll need to come back to this room every time you get one of the new beams of the game, with all three of these bomb slots up here corresponding to each of them. Send me once more, bird father! Fascinating. It's just so beautiful, I don't know what to say. Oh no, no, the fish! Oh god, what the hell? How could this get any goddamn worse? Oh god, please reel this back. I need a win. Yeah, okay, this does help. Thank you for the shotgun ice, oh great Chozo gods. Look at the way the ice covers her arm cannon while charging. That is so cool. So cool, in fact, that this just isn't present in the Wii port of the game. Actually, they cut out all of the unique charging effects for the beams. It's just that the ice beam one is the most obvious. It is the only one that people noticed. Oh please, just one more bowl and I'll be out of your life for a little bit longer. Oh shit, that pirate's got brain damage. It's fucked up. Is he friendly at least? Damn, okay. Gee, all these injured pirates is sure reminding me a lot of... oh, that just straight up is the Orphean. Is that self-destruct sequence really enough to send this thing retrograde enough to plummet into the atmosphere? Never mind, I don't think the series cares about interplanetary physics that much. Look, I played Kerbal Space Program once and my life has never been the same. I have lost so many gems. Oh shit, is that water down there? Yeah, fuck that, I'll be back later. Just don't be like Baby Trav all those years ago and try to get as far as he could without the gravity suit because he didn't even know that the gravity suit was in this game. Did I mention that the gravity suit is in this game yet? That's okay, this wrecked ship is right next to our gunship, so it's not too hard to find once we get back here. Yeah, that sounds a lot like another Metroid game. Oh, speak of the devil, gravity anomalies in Phendrana. All ready for some backtracking? You can run, but you can't hide from my fucking missiles, you jet-ass pack jet bitch! Well, fuck, he actually outran it. I gotta go eat a shoe. Oh shit, the Shegoths are all grown up now! Big homies make big steppies. Hey everybody, look! Gliders!
Speak to the devil.
Totally not a weird 3D alternative to the Rippers from the previous games, or I guess more specifically the Rippers in Super Metroids that let you use them as grapple hook points. Rippers were planned to be in the game, and I assume that the gliders just took their spot. I have no idea why they were cut. They were fully modeled for the game and can even be set to replace the model of the gliders to restore their intended purpose. I'm guessing it was done to make it more aesthetically consistent with the area. Since you only see these guys in like 3 areas in the game, I think. You know, that backtracking wasn't as bad as I remember it being as a kid. Now give me that goddamn purple screw attack, motherfucker. The more I say a swear word, the funnier it is to me.
Okay, it's time for one of our favorite games on the show called What If It Was Purple? Say purple.
Finally, now I can see underwater. I don't know how that works. And I can move around underwater freely again, so that's a kind of important. Great color scheme too, by the way. I love it. It's more of a shade of a bluish violet rather than the sex pink from Super Metroid. And the cyan visor and lights complement it so goddamn well. It's beautiful. The placement of the gravity suit here does kind of confuse me. Like, why is it placed so unceremoniously in the back corner of Phendrana Drifts? I mean, they explain it with lore that the pirates were experimenting on it. I just wonder what original plans they may have had for this thing. All right, let's grab a couple more funnies before we head back to the Orpheon. Like another cipher artifact. We'll be needing those and the Wave Buster after we finish this little puzzle. Well, it's not really a puzzle. It's more of a gate that doesn't let you past if you don't have enough super missiles to take this whole ass tower down. Trying to make these shots in between these oculi is really tricky with the GameCube controller, is what I said when I was younger and I would overthink this whole thing. I know, skill issue, whatever. Let's get our Wave Buster. I did it, guys. I got the funny Ghostbuster weapon that ironically doesn't work on ghosts.
That is so crazy.
Let's dive back in, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs, because I've got some unfinished business inside the Orpheon's corpse. Actually, not really. We're just passing through it. Why does a Sapsack have a unique scan log from the rest of them? There's no images on the side. This is completely unique. Wonder if I could still activate these conduits without the thermal visor. Oh, hell yeah! I don't know how any of this could get any better. Talon Crab!
It is now time for Crab.
Oh, that didn't take very long. Aqua Pirates, making their one and only appearance down here in the crashed Orpheon, combining their jetpacks with reversed engineer gravity suit tech. And that's not even the best part. These guys take 4 missiles instead of 3. Oh shit, you see that? You see Samus's eyes reflect in her own visor? I had to find some excuse to bring that up in the video because I know someone would get upset if I didn't. How many people in the early 2000s do you think had their first hit of gender dysmorphia when they saw this? I mean, it's one thing to see Samus outside of the suit, but seeing your own eyes reflect, that's bound to crack a couple eggs at least. I think the funniest part here is that it's not even Samus's mission to interrupt whatever they might be salvaging. Samus is just passing through like this goddamn juggernaut and they're shitting themselves every time they see her. I hope you like the Metroid Prime equivalent of switch hunting, because that's what we're going to be doing for basically the entire crashed Orpheon. Which, you know, makes sense. We need to power this ship back up so we can progress. It's just a little annoying. Maybe it's just my ADHD brain. I know that this is meant to be a slower area to break up the tension of the game, but it's just always a part that I never look forward to replaying. Not because it's bad, it just feels weirdly paced.
I shit my pants.
Hey, I've had days like that too, dude. Don't let it get to you. Never get the queso from Del Taco. Shit left me over the toilet for a goddamn week. Oh, great, a mutated Sapsack. It's explosive. More explosive. It's at least poetic to come through this area at this point in the game, literally seeing the wreckage that Samus destroyed in lore, albeit somewhat indirectly, and the calming music definitely gives it a unique feeling to the rest of the game. But at the end of the day, we're just using this to get access to the Phazon mines. Objectively the most dangerous region in the game because of all of the experimental pirate tech. Which, speaking of, okay, I don't think it's a good idea to just leave this shit out in the open, though with precious cargo like Phazon in these parts, it's no surprise that the pirates have upped their security. I know what you're going to ask, could these have prevented the fall of the Orpheon? Probably not, they just take one extra missile to take down. The Phazon mines are, for the most part, a linear jaunt with linear enemy scaling. A final, almost endgame gauntlet of encounters that we'll need to run through several times because we gotta grab a power-up at the end and then double back again to grab another power-up, leave the area, and then come back one final time. And one of the first new pirate variants we'll be meeting in this gauntlet is purple.
Come on! Looking at that stuff, man.
Wave troopers wield reverse-engineered wave beam tech, but because of an oversight in their armor, are left only vulnerable to exclusively the beam that they represent. I'm guessing this was made to counter Samus's wave beam because they aren't using the wave beam against me. I guess reverse-engineering it to create armor makes more sense in this context, except it, went completely backwards. And this could be said about the rest of the beam-based troopers. Now, there's one for all four of them, we'll be back to that later. The best part is that they're not immune to each of the effects of each beam's charge shots, meaning the purple ones can be easily stun-locked with the wave beam, white ones can be frozen and shattered with a missile, and the yellow ones can be one-shot with a super missile. It's a nice incentive to make players swap their weapons and even experiment a bit with their beam combos. Oh, that is a big boy. Who do I have the honor of seeing today? Check that out, they finally figured out the elite pirate thing. We'll be fighting them soon, for now they're just a little sleepy, though the lore really wants to hype them up for us. Mounted artillery, beam cannon attracting wristbands, likely reverse engineered from the She-Goths. They make up the perfect mini-boss for a kitted out Samus, which the pirates seem to be completely aware of. It's flat out confirmed in these computers that they're freaking out ever since they found out that Samus made landfall on Talon 4. And as they say in their logs, she is... How the fuck does this mining laser work? Did the pirates have to aim this themselves, or did they put a bowling ball in these spinners to aim it? I want to see how the pirates use this. Why is it like this? I remember getting stuck in the spider ball tower for the longest time as a kid. I would always turn it with a morph ball bomb, jump out of it, and then go up the tower to see if it connected to where I needed to go. I don't think it was until my third playthrough of this game as a kid that I noticed the hologram off to the side here that shows you its current configuration. Granted, I don't think I was in middle school yet at this point. Oh, I've got a gut feeling that this pirate isn't as sleepy as the one we saw before. Nope. Oh, okay, well, thank you for the info, but that's not the cannon. Why is the projectile flagged with the scan node? Hey, at least now we could switch to the thermal visor to exclusively target its artillery cannon. Ha! Now you're just a mortal man! Or a pirate. Logs suggest that they stole this from, quote, Star Marines. I'm going to assume that Retro Studios didn't get the memo that the Galactic Federation is no longer a coalition of different alien races acting as a galactic tribune, and is now a human imperialist Super America faction. Or it could be just a completely unrelated faction. Who knows? The circumstances are kind of weird with this one, and a lot of the lore in this port of the game isn't even really canon. And speaking of canon, here is where we find the first mention of the game's namesake, the Metroid Prime. A Metroid found at the impact site of the Phazon meteor with no limits to the amount of Phazon that it could safely absorb. And somehow, I repeat, somehow, the pirates managed to contain the damn thing. I'm not entirely sure how a Metroid got here. It could be explained that there were Metroids natively on Talon 4 before the space pirates showed up, or perhaps there were some Metroids stored on the frigate Orpheon that managed to survive the impact on the way down. But this was also like 20 years ago, so I don't get it. It doesn't add up here. Regardless of that though, why would there be Metroids on Talon for natively if the Chozo didn't bring them here. Or maybe they did, and they excluded the Metroids from the technology that they left behind. I feel like that's the only explanation, because currently, Metroid Prime is sitting inside the cradle, or the Phazon meteor that the cradle is holding up. I know that the Trilogy edition of the game does retcon it to explain how the Metroid got to Talon 4, but that's not what this video is about. Regardless, the Metroid Prime broke from their containment, predictably, almost strogifying itself by assimilating its body with their tech and weaponry, all the way down to a biological level. That assimilated tech is now just part of its physiology, even mimicking their own beam trooper tech and creating screens, as they put it, only vulnerable to specific weaponry. That was the final straw for the pirates, believing that it was time to seal this fucker away before it learned to overcome this specific trait while it's still vulnerable. How they got that thing locked inside the impact crater, I have no idea. They do mention that the Metroid Prime is capable of phasing through objects, becoming completely intangible, so it's possible this thing did come from the meteor, just phase out of it for a little snack, went on a ride with the space pirates, and then just crawled back in. I don't know, we'll be seeing it later in the game. So in research, they managed to create a strain of Phazon perfect for mixing into their soldiers, but only as long as they're fed a constant stream of it. Phazon is now all these elite pirates can consume, so it's up to other pirates to mix in nutrients and other shit into it, otherwise known as Mountain Dew voltage. As we read later on, the best method that they found out for this was creating Phazon-infused mushrooms, and then just growing giant mushrooms to break down into food for them, which we're gonna be using a lot for platforming later on. And also, I think you should just hear this for yourself.
Science team is attempting to reverse engineer Samus Aran's arsenal based off of data acquired from her assaults on our forces. Progress is slow, but steady. Command would dearly enjoy turning Aran's weapons against her. We believe we can implement beam weapon prototypes in 3 cycles. Aran's power suit technology remains a mystery, especially the curious morph ball function. All attempts at duplicating it have ended in disaster. 4 test subjects were horribly broken and twisted when they engaged our morph ball prototypes. The science team wisely decided to move on afterward.
Ouch! Wait, why is it still playing?
We've been investigating her weaknesses as well. Despite millions in research, we haven't been able to figure out why can't she crawl.
And to add more insult to injury, they also know that Samus has access to their terminals, which is made even funnier knowing how quickly Samus was able to decode their logs. Bro, I really don't know what to say. I just hold down the left trigger and that's it, man. And when they're not freaking out about Samus, they're having run-ins with the Chozo ghosts, which of course they stand no chance against. They reverse engineered the power beam wrong. It's become so bad that they've issued the Chozo ruins as off limits, which I guess is a good reason to explain why we didn't see any down there despite seeing pirates in every other region in the game. Hey, did you know that Metroids become more aggressive when not held in frigid temperatures? Yeah, crazy thought, right? Seriously, if you didn't figure it out by now that these pirates are fucking idiots that somehow know their way around technology, then you'll figure it out around this point. They are convinced that Samus's gunship is using cloaking tech simply because they just can't find it, which is some incredible arrogance, but with arrogance comes a feeling of superiority. These fuckers keep going on and on about how they'll crush all that oppose them like the space fascists that they are. And as one of their threats of brute force to overthrow the galaxy is their elite pirate Upsilon, later codenamed the Omega Pirate. A super elite pirate complete with cloaking abilities and the ability to heal itself through absorbing more Phazon. We'll be seeing one of them very soon. Hey, that's a nice power source for that highly unstable dynamo you've got there. Mind if I interface with it? Oh shit, the ghost is packing heat! That would have been a great and also poetic time to use the Wave Buster, but I completely forgot. Ow! Ow! Holy shit, they've been using power bombs as energy sources? I mean, I guess that makes sense. This thing is essentially a tiny nuclear reactor. Yeah, power bombs are here, and they're devastating in this game. So devastating that your ammo for these things peaks at 8, even with every expansion collected. I don't use them very offensively for most of the time. It's usually just for clearing debris, but for the few enemies that I do use this thing on, it's very fun. All right, so I've got another pitch for that Metal Gear Metroid idea. Oh, looks like I found their Metroids. Be free, my children. Again. Oh, these ones are getting kind of big, though, which would be more of a threat if I didn't have the ice beam. Too bad there's nothing we could do in this room for now, because we gotta backtrack all the way back to the beginning of the region. The only way to loop us back to the beginning of the map where we started is all the way at the end of the Phazon Mines, which we can't even access yet, so we just gotta go back in a straight path. This is something that, again, really bothered me when I was younger. I thought that it really hurt the pacing, but unlike the Orpheon, I think that coming back through here with the power bombs does keep this backtrack a bit fresh. And from my point of view, I'm putting these pirates out of their misery, especially since they outlawed pirates having pets, and that any pirates that didn't turn in their pets for execution would suffer a ration cut. I don't think I'd be able to keep going at that point. That's fucking terrible. And on the topic of points, there it is, the last of our arsenal recovered from our time up in the Orpheon. Now let's get that crane powered, shall we? Oh, that's so goofy, I love it. Oh, I remember this shot of the impact crater leaving me in awe as a kid. Of course, it's because I was a dumb child. No shit, the Phazon Mines are right next to the edge of the Phazon meteor. This view shouldn't have surprised me, but goddamn did it, and I thought it was fucking cool. You can see a similar view in the Magmore Caverns where it connects to the Phazon Mines. It really helps keep this world connected, like a really lesser version of the moon from Majora's Mask. Thankfully, we don't need to backtrack too far into Talon Overworld before we pop back into the mines. We're just here to snag the X-ray visor right after we go up this corkscrew penis spiderball track. Look, it's an iconic piece of Chozo architecture, okay? I thought that this shit was so cool as a kid because I would occasionally watch Smallville with my parents. And I remember those scenes where young Clark Kent would see through people's skin and just look at their bones. And I thought, hell yeah, now I could do that too. This is also what makes the Chozo Ghost so incredibly easy. Sure, it's nice of this game that's told me what every destructible object in the game has been made up of all the way to this point in the game to suddenly stop telling me what things are made out of, or even give it a scan tag regardless. Motherfucker, I don't have the patience for this great grand cousin Epiorinthidae. What the fuck were the words that just came out of my mouth? Did I just get possessed? Okay, I kinda lied. We need to backtrack all the way through Magmore for the plasma beam because I forgot that we need that to reach the end of the Phazon Mines. So I might as well pull a Meridia on this here tube to get the ice spreader real quick. Our third beam combo. Imagine a super missile, but instead taking 10 missiles instead of 5, and being more useless against targets that are resistant to the ice beam. I forgot to use this outside of the final boss fight, so it's gonna be a minute before you see me use it. Yeah, I could have gone back and recorded more footage of using this thing before the final boss, but I didn't fucking want to. Now shut up and give me that puzzle music. Let's go! Spin those platforms! Bomb those holes! Okay, that's more than I expected. Look at that fucking full range of motion with the spider ball. This is the only spot in the whole game that's like this, I think. And now look at what I will take from you. Why is it red? Okay, actually, it makes a bit of sense. This is now a heat-based weapon rather than a weapon that pierces through flesh, electing to incinerate its targets instead. So the red coloring for the heat, yeah, it makes sense. Seriously, the charge shot kills with this thing are unnerving in the best way possible. Fuck it, let's go clean up a bit of Flandrana while we're here. Let me melt your spit. Oh my god, I just killed it by melting the ice on its carapace. That poor little thing, holy shit, that's so fucked up. I might as well try to grab this while I'm here too. Fuck this one specific artifact. There is nothing in your scan visor to tell you where this door is, and that it's behind a rock that you need to see with the X-ray scope. The door doesn't even appear on your map until you've opened it once. So I can't blame something like development crunch for making this hard to see. This was intentionally hidden from the player. It's bullshit. Fuck this artifact. Hold on, did that trooper just die to fall damage or the phazon? Oh shit, I forgot to scan him too. It feels so wrong being at this point in the mines and still only fighting off basic-ass Metroids. Now would be a perfect spot to introduce one of its variants, which is exactly what they did in later releases of the game. It can't be too much longer, right? I say knowing exactly where they appear. I'm guessing the pirates did reverse engineer those glider things for their cloaking tech for these platforms? Maybe it's just a side effect of working on the Omega Pirate. But what's the point of having invisible platforms in your science lab? Is it to navigate around while not startling the Metroids? I don't think they really care that much. I mean, we see that Bombus down here are cloaked as well, so clearly it's deliberate. Oh, there they are. You guys are a little late. Oh, I hate it. Hunter Metroids, the first of 2 Metroid variants we'll be meeting. And in any other version of the game, you would have met them by now. They're exactly what the lore in the Phendrana Hydra Labs foreshadowed. Weaker Metroids with a longer range that are just as susceptible to being frozen and shattered with missiles. If anything, I think that this makes them less dangerous than their green friends. Wait, hold on, why is this area so cold? Was this an accident, or was there a last-ditch attempt to control the Metroids down here? Whatever, it makes for a really dramatic door opening, which I'm never against. I'm guessing that means we're nearing one of the big boys. Yep, there he is. Or at least one of them, because the phazon has started breaking down the Omega Pirate's cellular structure, giving them a shorter lifespan. Alright, well that's one and done. Good thing we're out here and he's in there, and I just remembered. Yep, he sure looks like a bigger elite pirate. You could take this guy down pretty quick with a power bomb, right? I've never seen that before. This guy really is just an elite pirate with extra steps. Rather than targeting the head, you have to take out the phazon deposits on each of his limbs. But the attacks he uses is all stuff that we've seen before. Destroying all 4 of his phazon deposits leaves him vulnerable after he calls for reinforcements while he recharges in one of the room's phazon pools. You can only see him with the X-ray visor, but a few super missiles is usually enough to make quick work of the guy. He can even let you hit him more than once. This is roughly where I believe the original meta Kraid fight was supposed to take place. The one and only official model shown for the guy shows him next to those massive mushrooms the pirates grow for the Omega Pirates. And given that this boss recycles a lot of an existing enemy's moveset, I think that it's fair that Kraid was planned to be the boss of these parts, and that the Omega Pirate was whipped up quickly from the Elite Pirate as a way to save time. Though I'm really curious how they would have handled Kraid giving Samus the phazon suit. Why is it red? Shouldn't the phazon suit be blue? I mean, I'm not gonna say that the suit doesn't look badass, because it really is. But nothing about this screams phazon. This design choice was more so to bring out the aggressive nature of phazon. This substance that's all corrupting. Something to even drive ghosts mad. And because this was the early 2000s and black and red color schemes was all over the place, that's just what they decided on. Oh, Clifford, I'm so sorry to lump you into this. Now, a blue and teal phazon suit was originally planned as the phazon Phazon suit, which I think looks absolutely gorgeous. This color palette can actually be seen in-game via hacking if you use an all-inventory cheat during the Orphean opening cutscene. It even has glowing highlights around it that you don't see in this model when pulled into a 3D model viewer. And if you ask me, that sounds really familiar to Metroid Prime 3, but if they wanted to go with this theme of corruption and madness, yeah, I understand why they went with this final suit design. It doesn't look bad by any means. It kind of makes me think of Samus getting taken by the Venom symbiote or something. The Phazon suit grants us even more layers of protection, as well as full immunity from blue Phazon, which means that we could grab that missile tank that we were locked out of shortly before this fight. Oh, did I say missile tank? I meant a mandatory artifact behind enough bomb blocks for Samus to die without the Phazon suit. Wow, that does not look safe, at least for our time, and opening the loop up for the Phazon mines, we are given our final energy tank of the run. Really, that's it. All we've got left in terms of plot is to reconstruct the cipher to make our way into the meteor, except we still need those artifacts to assemble the cipher, so that's what we gotta do. Wake up, big guy, I need your artifact. Why do you look like that? Alright, now don't forget the most important item in the game while you're down here, the flamethrower. This thing sucks, I don't like it. I don't even have footage of using it against Metroid Prime, I just forgot I had it. Goodbye, Phazon Mines, I really won't miss you. Hello, Birdman, I'm here for my final plasma offerings. And there it is, almost every artifact in the game. Don't have to worry, I always leave the one inside the cradle for last. I am a dumbass though, I forgot to grab the power bomb expansion at the very top of the same room with that bullshit X-ray plasma door for the artifact. Somehow I always forget about this. Whatever, that should be about everything. Let's cap this adventure off with one more ass shake before I wrap things up. God bless that floating rock and all the Chozo lore that it came with. And also this pirate log where they bitch about not being able to enter the impact crater. It sucks to suck, motherfuckers, but I beat you to it. At least something was 100% about this run. I swear that I'm cursed to never have a proper 100% scans run. Oh, you son of a bitch, I should have known. The pirates knew that Samus would succeed in reconstructing the cipher so that they could swoop in at the last second and take the meteor for themselves. Is what I thought as a kid, because Ridley destroying the statues that are the path to inside the meteor doesn't make any sense. Oh god, the aspect ratio! Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain as I fix this shit. Oh god, now I became the man behind the curtain. Okay, I really wish that I had something to say about this fight, but Ridley spends so much time just flying out of reach and padding out the fight that I just end up getting really fucking bored. Yeah, just super missile his chest whenever you can, and eventually the dude will have to make an emergency landing, kicking off the second phase of the fight. Yeah, real tough now without your wings, are you, big guy? Your wings that got burned off despite being energy. Sure, okay. At least phase 2 is a bit more engaging. I see why so many folks try to skip this by boost balling into his chest to almost instantly kill him, but you have to blast his face whenever he opens his mouth so that you could expose his chest. It's the same game with a couple extra steps. It's pretty lame that this is one of the lesser fights in Metroid Prime. The one that's built up from the beginning of the game, Samus's arch nemesis. I mean, at least he looks kinda badass. Meta Ridley, from my perspective, is just about as iconic as Ridley himself. Please make this fight end. I could really use some divine intervention. Thanks, Dad. Alright, I need someone to explain how these ghosts are able to help us right now. Is the last of the energy from the artifacts giving them the strength to fight their Phazon madness in their 11th hour or some bullshit? I mean, it's kind of badass regardless. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got a date with a worm. This is very red. It's kind of a shame that this concept of red Phazon is never revisited in the series after this. Or maybe it's for the best, because this is where we meet our final Metroid variant that isn't Metroid Prime itself. Fission Metroids, an enemy that taught me what the word fission meant and also had me confuse it with diffusion because of Metroid Fusion. Not only do these guys infinitely respawn from the red Phazon below, which would make sense if they stuck with the plot point of the Phazon being pure Metroid juice, but these things have mastered the power of mitosis, splitting themselves into two smaller Metroids, each color-coded to tell you which beam to use on them. It's my own personal headcanon that when the Metroid Prime infused itself with some of the pirate tech, that it somehow passed this trait down biologically. These fuckers even bred themselves an immunity to being frozen, all on their own too. I mean, kind of indirectly with the space pirates' help, but because they're still Talon Metroids, that means they're vulnerable to power bombs and not a threat to the universe as we know it. Hey, why am I platforming on giant teeth? Is this where all of my baby teeth go when I put them under my pillow? Because I never got quarters under my pillow, just more teeth. Now, I got my wisdom teeth out earlier this year, and my dentist just shoved a metal stick next to them and pushed them out. I will never forget the crunching sound that it made. Oh, what's this? One last spider ball puzzle before the final boss? Nah, I'm good. Oh shit, sorry, I must have the wrong room. I was looking for Metroid Prime, not a
giant enemy spider.
Wait, that thing is Metroid Prime? Oh, you know, I could actually kind of see it now. It assimilated the Beam Trooper tech, and I could kind of see the shape of their helmet in this thing's head. I think I'm more thrown off by its eyes. I never took a Metroid for needing optic nerves, glands, whatever. What is organs? What is an eye considered? Why does it have a nose? The fight is surprisingly simple. Swap your beam to the same color as its glowing bits and avoid its projectiles. Occasionally, you'll need to morph ball under it when it rushes you. Which, hey, this fight finally gives us a reason to go nuts with our beam combos.
You got a cold, then mute the booster.
Every time I hit this thing with the ice spreader, I think of a cat with a slice of cheese slapped on its face. It's not entirely frozen, it's just its face. Why does it just freeze like that?
Who are you? Ah! No, please!
Now that looks way closer to a Metroid. Again, with eyes. Maybe that's why it looks like that. It spent too much time working out at the library and reading books. Oh my god, the worm is a bookworm. I get it now. Holy shit, you see that? She did the pose from the promotional material. It's not the box art. The box art is a different pose. That's kind of cool, though. Wait, I was fucking wrong. That's the Japanese box art. I am very smart. Now watch me suplex this nuclear jellyfish. Okay, so do you remember in Super Metroid how Mother Brain was only killable with the Hyper Beam and became one of the most badass power trips in the 90s? Imagine that fight with only the Hyper Beam and no power trip. Only attacks from a Phazon-infused arm cannon can hurt this, the logbook says, which could render this thing nigh invincible if it didn't need to literally shit out pools of Phazon that I could just channel through my suit. This sounds fine on paper and wouldn't be an issue if I didn't have to play the most boring game of nuclear jump rope while I wait for the next shipment of liquid goo to send through my gun. Whose idea was it to make a jellyfish that shits liquid meth? But after the next 12 times I do this, it becomes less cool. Yeah, this is a pretty fucking lame final boss. This thing's only attack is its shockwaves, which are so predictable that I could just listen for the sound cue and dodge it without even needing to use the appropriate visor. The closest thing this fight has to difficulty is when you select the wrong visor by accident when you're supposed to be shooting it with the Hyper Beam. I mean, sure, sometimes it summons baby Metroids after you, but you could just take them out with the power bomb. And you do all of this for about 5 or 6 minutes or so, which isn't the end of the world, but this is the final boss and is such a lame way from a gameplay standpoint to cap off this incredible journey. You can make this fight even easier and avoid its shockwave attacks altogether by standing on Prime's exoskeleton. But why do I want to make this fight even more mind-numbing? Come on, I'm starting to lose my voice. And to make things worse, this fight is just as bad in the remaster. Alright, the remaster. Yes, back in February 2023, the elusive Metroid Prime remaster, which had been the hot topic of Nintendo leaks for years, was not only announced, but shadow dropped on the Switch the very same day. Nintendo was just waiting for the perfect moment to ship this thing, and they really tested our patience here, allegedly finishing this remaster all the way back in 2021 before Dread was even announced. It's easy to look back at this in hindsight and realize, oh, this was clearly an exercise in pushing the limits of the Nintendo Switch for the inevitable Metroid Prime 4, which, from what we knew at the time of Prime 4's production being restarted back in 2019, was getting ready to be shown either next year in 2024 or the following year if the modern 6-year time span of game development is to be trusted. But to write off the Metroid Prime remaster as just a tech demo would almost be an insult. Everything in Prime Remastered simultaneously looks just like how you remember the game looking back in 2002, while also looking like the most graphically beautiful game to ever grace the Nintendo Switch. I could only think of maybe one area in the game that doesn't look as good as it did on the GameCube, and that's just because the area itself doesn't really have very much color correction post-processing, so the clashing saturated browns and greens of this sort of stone structure where you fight Ridley just doesn't look as good when compared to the background. The only thing really that I could think of that is actively worse in the remaster compared to previous versions is how the game handles the thermal visor. And even then, it's really only while you're moving, which you're going to be doing a lot of in this game. If you're standing still, I'd argue it even looks better than how the original game handled it. It actually looks like you're looking through some kind of thermal camera. And that weird blurring effect that happens when you're moving with it is arguably realistic. It's just, you know, it doesn't translate well into gameplay. For the most part, the original art direction is left intact, even if they totally could have changed it to be more in line with later retcons. The red Phazon that I talked about earlier in the Impact Crater was the first one that came to mind. I was hoping that they'd change it to blue, since later games tend to just ignore the existence of red Phazon, but the original vision was respected, and it's given a hell of a facelift. As it stands, we're supposed to believe that the red Phazon that's so abundant here on Talon 4 is only shared by a couple of enemies in Prime 3. I could only guess that maybe this is the result of the Phazon Leviathan being contained by the Chozo, or some other side effect of the Chozo magic keeping this rock suspended. That's not to say that nothing has been changed to fit into the timeline. Meta Ridley actually has purple flesh this time, akin to his appearance in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and if I had to speculate, this was made to make Ridley appear more in line with how he does at the end of Samus Returns. Even though we see Ridley again in Prime 3 and that wouldn't exactly make sense, I don't know. That's really the only change I could think of, aside from giving Samus's visor this sort of triangle pattern that we'll later see in Metroid Prime 4. That's pretty cool. Gameplay is where the most drastic changes have been made. For the first time, without the need for mods like Prime Hack, the game has finally been given official twin stick support, which feels great. It surprisingly doesn't break the game any more than the Wii's controls did. I mean, what was the Wii pointer if not just a glorified right stick? This does come with some caveats though. With our entire right stick taken up, we need a new method to swap beams. This has been relegated to using the D-pad just like the visor, but only if you're holding X on the gamepad, which is fine. But if you're using this control method, the scan visor has been moved to the right on the D-pad. This took me a while while to get used to, but I get what they were going for. It is a lot easier to reach for right on the D-pad, especially if we're going to be reaching for that so often, because, you know, we're going to be doing a lot of scanning in this game. But if you switch back to the classic GameCube controls, which, yes, is an option, it's right back there on the left, so this was a deliberate decision. But yeah, if you really wanted to, you could plug in a GameCube adapter if you have one and play this with the original GameCube controller. Even if you prefer the Wii controls for some reason, there's an option for you to do it with the Joy-Cons. Personally, I'm not a fan. The gyro on my Joy-Cons tends to be prone to drifting. The option is nice, and makes sense because this was built off of the Trilogy edition of Metroid Prime, and with that comes a lot of lore and weird engine quirks. The most interesting one to me being that the very same unused lore entries from the Trilogy version of Prime 1 are still here and unused. This does also mean that a lot of the lore codexes that we find in the game are the revised versions to fit into the lore of Prime 3. No, I'm not going to be going over the lore differences here. That's going to be saved for the Prime 3 video. It'll be more relevant to the story that they're trying to tell. This does mean that we get the Spring Ball once we collect the Morph Ball bombs with a dedicated button as well, on top of being able to flick the controller, which is how I was doing it until I discovered that button by accident. I even slammed my controller and, in extension, my hands into the bottom of my desk while trying to solve a Morph Ball puzzle. Oh! Fuck! Because of this being built off the Wii version though, this does also come with some upgrades for better or for worse. There's no scan jumping to get an early space jump, but we do also get a full Flagra theme. The original PAL region voice suit lines when we scan something new are here, as well as this dramatic voiceover that was really only in the PAL version from my understanding.
The cosmos. In the vast universe, the history of humanity is but a flash of light from a lone star.
Also, fission Metroids are in phazon mines and will self-destruct from wonky collision, so that's fun. To kill 2 Screes with a single Thardus, I did record my playthrough here on hard mode so I could show you all of the strange intricacies of what changed between the difficulties, and unlike my previous video, Zero Mission, not much has really changed. In fact, I think aside from Samus being weaker and taking more damage, I don't think there's really anything that's changed. Enemies don't exactly have double their normal health, it's closer to maybe like 1 3/4 multiplier, but it's rounded up to the nearest value for weaker enemies. Turrets, for example, take 2 extra missiles to kill, effectively doubling their health, but Magmors take 7 missiles to kill instead of 4, and Plated Beetles take 3 missiles where normally they take 2, so for them it's like a 1.5 multiplier. I think it's more likely that every enemy has been adjusted individually, and it's not just a flat 1.7x multiplier. We still get 5 missiles per expansion and 100 energy per E-Tank. Really, the only item that's impacted by this change is the Wave Buster. And not the Wave Buster itself, but collecting it. The pillars that hold it up now take 6 missiles worth of damage instead of 3, raising the requirements to even get it in the first place. In the span of the whole game, it really changes everything until you get the Ice Beam, where you're able to shatter most enemies and kill them with a single missile. Until you make it to the phazon mines, where all the Beam Troopers take your hard mode run to a screeching halt. Made even worse that the Ice Beam Troopers can't even be shattered. I don't remember if this is a Wii Trilogy thing, but it turns this part of the game into a fucking slog. The Ice Spreader does help by freezing the nearby troopers, but you're really just using it to buy time. It doesn't really help with damage. Now, mashing the fire button has been made a bit easier. Holding it down will fire a small 3-shot burst with the power beam, 2 shots with the Waver Plasma, or 1 with the ice beam, allowing you to rest your fingers a bit if you're just spamming your shots. But with modern controls, you can also alternate between pressing A and RZ to mash faster with a surprisingly comfortable flicking motion. My girlfriend hates when I do this. Now, if your muscle memory from the original is kicking in, you might feel that firing a charge shot is taking longer, and it is. But if you ask me, it's not that big of a deal. It's enough to upset a couple of folks that mentioned it in my Discord server, so, you know, that's pretty cool, but it's a fraction of a second difference, and I think that only a few people are really gonna be upset by that. I thought it might have been the charge beam that was turning Samus's arm cannon into a turn signal, but no, it was always there. I just totally missed it. You'll get used to it after a while. I know it can be a little distracting once you notice it. I just really wish that the charge beam would light up the environment like in the original, but I get why it doesn't. A lot of the lighting and reflections in this remaster are impressively using a lot of old school rendering techniques. A lot of reflections are just baked in, so we can't see Samus's reflection in these Chozo ruin mirrors, and a lot of environmental reflections, like these rocks and Magmor caverns, look like they're using a more advanced version of light mapping. I think that's the right term, but that makes sense. This is built off of, effectively, the original GameCube version, and that's how they did it back in the GameCube release. Other illuminating items, like the Morph Ball and even the Power Beam shots, look like they're still using simple light maps, but still look really good because of how small and quick they are, as well as just how good a lot of that pre-baked lighting already looks on its own. That's my hypothesis anyway. anyway. None of this is meant to be a jab at the game. I mean, do you see how pretty this game looks? Frankly, I think that retro quote-unquote faking a lot of this lighting is more impressive than if this thing was actually running some kind of advanced lighting engine. Sure, I'd love to see Metroid Prime with ray tracing, but I mean, we don't need it. Alright, so now I'm just gonna rapid fire through a lot of these changes I thought were neat because I have no idea how to segue into these naturally. Can you believe that it took us this long to finally see Prime 1's title screen in 60 FPS? Did it always have that weird string of DNA RNA sequences at the upper right corner? Probably not. $10 to the first person to actually turn this into a DNA sequence. Just kidding, I'm broke. These little loading intermission screens are something that I never really saw because I just put my Switch into sleep mode, but I love it whenever I see them. It's just incredibly rare. It reminds me a lot of the loading screens from Mega Man X8 that are completely absent from the Legacy Collection because it improves the load time, so you don't even see the foreshadowing that these are supposed to give you. Do you guys still want an X8 review? I'll only do it if you ask nice. Beam doors are almost obnoxiously bright in this game, but I think the benefits outweigh the cons. You can see them much better from a distance, and you can even see from the inside of the doorway itself what color that side of the beam door is. I think that was in the original game, but I never noticed, and it's just a great attention to detail. The new particle effects for when I'm fighting the Chozo Ghost, it's just so fucking cool. I love it. The boost ball gets different colors depending on what suit you have, and even turns green once you get the spider ball. It makes me wonder if there's some kind of unused color that it has for if you were to get the boost ball while you were still in the normal power suit. Why must the stone toads look at me with such big beady eyes? The hologram effect that covers Samus's feet in this cutscene when you get the space jump boots is entirely missing. It's an upgrade for her boots, so when the cutscene just pans down to her feet and make them glow like that, it still makes sense to a new player. I don't fault them for removing it. Why do the shoulders on the Elite Pirates look like the atmosphere of a planet seen from a distance, and why does it look so cool? The Omega Pirate looks like it could have used a bit more polishing to look nice, but it looks like a Halo Elite for some reason, and I'm all for it. You can see where all the polish went from when it falls onto Samus and melts onto her to give her the Phazon suit. This liquid simulation, even though pre-baked, looks amazing. It's not even a liquid simulation, it's just a video being played over this texture. It's actually relatively low poly, but the illusion just looks so good. Even the Phazon suit itself is fucking beautiful. I love these lighter gray, almost metallic segments on it, giving it this sort of chrome sheen. It looked a bit too edgy back on the GameCube, and I'm glad that they spiced it up with something here, even if this is how it was supposed to look originally. And you know what? I'm gonna say it. I think it looks better when she just walks out of that Phazon goo with the Phazon suit without striking a pose. Yeah, that pose is cool as shit, but it felt out of place if you ask me. And yes, you can still scan the Omega Pirate before the fight begins. This is a 10 out of 10 remaster. Behold, the Ice Beam charging effect. Oh my god. The Phazon on Thardis looks like tumors on the guy, which is thematically perfect, and these were actually always there in the original game. You just couldn't really see it without upscaling it. They even fixed the walking speed matching her animation when she first enters Phendrana that I mentioned in my old video. Earlier in this video. Mama Sheegoth actually looks scary when she shows up. She got a hell of a facelift. You see, the biggest problem artists make when drawing a Sheegoth is forgetting the eyebrow. Alright, this part isn't new to the game, but fuck you, I wanted to show it off anyway. I just shot a 3 from the paint. So I don't remember if this was in the trilogy version, but Samus does this little double jump hop when chasing down the Metroid Prime instead of just spinning repeatedly like in the classic games. And even does it again after you finish the fight in the cutscene. And the Metroid Prime looks so good. Oh, that didn't look very good. But the essence of the Metroid Prime looks amazing. I love how rigid and veiny it looks, which, okay, I guess we should get back to the original now. Oh god, my pelvis! Fuck, man, if it's that important, you can just have the Phazon suit. Fuck you, man. We have done it, I think. The source of the great poison has been slain, and the very worm that has poisoned the land and woke the dead is nothing but goo. Kind of admit though, from a story point of view, the game really does just end. There's very little of substance here, just a mid-final boss that's built up as this destroyer of worlds as our bookend. And the cradle meant to contain this great poison is left in ruins. There's really no reason to be celebrating, unless there's some log in the game that says with the destruction of the Metroid Prime that all Phazon would cease to exist, but that's not the case. The great poison is left to fester in the crater. It's pretty cool that we get to see Samus's head in full 3D view if you beat the game with more than 75% items. I mean, you see the back of her head regardless even if you don't meet this criteria, but 75 and above, you get that full view. It doesn't look nearly as good today. You could thank the game being upscaled for that, but as a kid, seeing this on a CRT TV, I thought this was a real person's head just superimposed in between the model. It could just be rose-tinted nostalgia, but I think that there's a little bit of merit to CRTs making some older games look better, especially a generation behind on the PlayStation. I'll get to the 100% ending here in just a moment. Yes, I love this game to death, even despite its messy third act. It remains one of my favorite games in the series as a contender for one of my favorite games of all time. But even I can admit that there's some issues here. But it's good to remember, Samus's power suit is symbiotic, an organism in its own right, and with a substance as all-corrupting as Phazon, well. That which fouls the water seeks the sun. Hey guys, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. This was a really long one, and I'm sorry that it took so long to get out. I know that some of you are probably going to say something along the lines of, this is just the same old video put together, why did it take you so long to do this? The truth is that a lot of what I changed in this video are a lot of small and tedious things that I wanted to update along the way. If you're only listening to this video, you probably didn't notice too much that was different, but I genuinely hope that you enjoyed it, even if you've seen the original 2 videos when they were split into parts. I was always going to re-upload them as one big part anyway, but the amount of work that I put into this remastering, no pun intended, of that original video was way more than I expected. If there are any significant changes that you noticed, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Or if this is your first time watching this video, let me know what you thought. I would love to know. If you want to join this list of names off to the side here, you could consider joining me on Patreon, subscribing to me on Twitch, or joining me as a YouTube member. You'll get your name in the credits of the video, and if you join the $20 tier, you could join names such as Blue Nightboy, Stressed Axis 862, and Shinespark. You guys get your names shouted out in every video as long as you are currently pledging, and that, you know, means a lot to me. I'm hoping I could get a few more videos out before the end of the year, and, well, I'll see you then.